Awesome.
Yeah,
It's not in your way, is it? So,
no, it's fine.
Yeah.
Just waiting at the moment.
Upcoming.
Anything yet?
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah.
It is there,
Perfect.
it's just-
And then if someone just turns their volume up, just sugar, temporarily, see if the audio's like.
Oh, I've got adverts.
Adverts, that's good. That means I get paid. Someone just turns their volume yeah, that's great. Okay, you can turn it down now. Thank you. Yeah. Oh.
Before we kick off, guys, anybody want any water or anything?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, we're on 15 minutes or so.
Coming out of that tank in the corner, but you're here.
Okay. We've got plants, we've got to get rocks if I don't mind. We'll get rocks in a bit.
I'll take some down, fill this in.
Work the other way. Anyone else?
Anybody else?
Yeah. Let's get rid of them. I'll get some more. Okay, buddy.
Quick question.
Yeah.
I know you did have a style line.
Yeah.
I'm guessing on one later.
Yeah.
After the shades. How much storage did you use roughly? Going roughly for this space?
Yeah, I think either 9 or 12 litres.
I thought it was roughly that.
You could probably use 9 if you can probably just get away with shallow.
Yeah, because your
Unless you
scape,
really wanna-
I quite like your scape, but I'm trying to go for something similar.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask quickly. I'm picking
Yeah,
up
yeah,
on
no
it.
worries. Yeah, I didn't use a lot of 9 litres, should be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, let's, Phil, did you want to introduce anything or shall I just carry on?
No, just a big thanks from all those guys for everybody who's come, and I'm sure it doesn't need any introduction.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks for coming. Hello, my name's George. Welcome to this Aquascaping event, kindly hosted by Kidsgrove and supported by Awase UK. I'm an Awase ambassador, so that means that I represent Awase, and the reason I do that is because they are a great company and I choose to represent them. A bit of history, I actually bought one of their first Biomaster filters when they came out. There's one here, in fact. And I loved it so much, I actually reached out to them, and it was one of my YouTube channels growing, and I said to them, you know, I really like your filter, do you want to kind of sponsor my channel? And they were like, yes. And then one thing led to another, and here I am doing workshops, you know, for Awase and for great shops that take aquascaping a bit more seriously now, which is really great to see for me personally. You know, I've been in the hobby 20 years now, and it's the last few years especially that we've really seen, especially in the UK, like the aquascaping hobby kind of growing, which is really great to see. So seeing so many of you here is a great reflection of that. So thank you so much for coming, especially in the weather that we've got right now. I really hope you enjoy this event. It's going to be at least. We'll talk about all the equipment in some detail, why we're using it, what we're using, how we use it. Any questions, please throw at me throughout the workshop. We are live streaming it as well, so if you do want to ask questions, you know, we're having your voice broadcast live, but please don't be shy. I'm here to help you. I'm here to hopefully inspire you, and by the end of this event, hopefully you've learned something and hopefully made your aquascaping journey a little bit better. So yeah, let's crack on, shall we? So the aquarium, or let's go back to the beginning. What is aquascaping? So most of you, we did a show of hands earlier. All of you pretty much have an aquarium. You may have heard of aquascaping already, but it's good to go back to basics. You know, what is aquascaping? And for me, it can be summed up quite easily in the art of making a beautiful aquarium. It doesn't need to be like planted. You don't have to use, you know, natural materials even. You know, you can make any, you can make any aquarium. So we'll go through some kind of lessons in your own aquariums at home and make your aquascapes maybe a little bit prettier. We're going to focus on the nature aquarium style of aquascaping today. It's my wheelhouse, if you like. It's my comfort zone. It's what I'm well known for. And the reason I really love it, it's just something that really kind of connects with me personally. This nature style. It's using natural materials. It looks beautiful. It kind of makes you feel relaxed. It connects you to some kind of, deeper level of nature when you have this kind of beautifully aquascaped aquarium. So that's what we're going for today. And the kind of style that I like to go for is to keep it quite simple, quite straightforward, quite easy to replicate, quite accessible and quite approachable. So almost anyone here, luxury, relatively expensive, but we can that we're using today, and we can apply them into your aquariums at home. No matter what level that you're at, and no matter how expensive your system is. So let's talk about the system in a bit more detail, shall we? Indoor aquariums, the scape line, style line, and high line. This is the newest. This is purely for purist aquascapers. It's quite a premium product. I can't remember how much it is RRP. I'm sure Phil will let you know if you do want to purchase one. But they are a high-end product, luxury brand, really well designed, German build quality. The cabinets themselves, loads of unique features. Starting with the doors, push to release, and then a slow, soft close. But they have these really cool magnets on the inside there. I don't know if you guys can't see over there, unfortunately, but you just have to take my word for it that there's these magnets on the back there for your tools. Really nice detailing, really great build quality, and it's designed to kind of withstand a little bit of water. A lot of cheaper cabinets will take in water. We call it water ingress, and because of most cheaper cabinets, especially, are made of MDF, medium density fiberboard, and once that gets water in, it kind of swells, and then the cabinet kind of loses its integrity. So these are designed not to make that happen. Super strong. A couple of unique features here on the left. We've got a Biomaster external filter. It's also on a sliding drawer here, which makes maintenance really easy. So for those that don't know already, Biomaster is one of their unique features, and one of my favourite features is the quick release pre-filter. So to remove that, you simply lock off your valves there, switch that one off there, and then that comes out. You take this to your sink in your kitchen, utility room or wherever, and then that pops apart. You take these off, rinse them in running tap water. This is purely mechanical filtration, not biological, so you can rinse that in running tap water, a couple of minutes, put it all back together again, and then that's the filter maintained. And you don't actually need to touch the inside of there now for months. So, a couple of minutes in there every week, and that's good to go. Really great feature. Also has, this is the thermo version, which means it also has a built-in heater. So you don't have this ugly heater in the tank. You've got that taken out of the aquarium, built into your filter. So my favourite filters, and they are, going back to my original story, these are the reason that I am an Algae ambassador now, because I was so impressed with these filters. So that's the cabinet. We've got some shelving here. This is adjustable. We've got a CO2 kit here. It's another unique thing about the cabinets are on the side panels here. We've got removable kind of pieces here that slot in and out with magnets, and then you can have your filter tubing coming through the side. Because in aquascaping, a lot of time we have no background, so a clear background, even illuminated backgrounds to get this greater sense of depth. And then we often have clear hosing and glass or acrylic inlet and outlet are coming over the side of the aquarium. And the reason for that is we wouldn't want to see these pipes coming up behind the aquarium because we've got no background. Does that make sense to everyone? So we have these to remove so we can have the hoses coming out. And they also have different sizes, so you can actually configure your different slots according to your needs. So really cool features. You know, real, actually brand new features for the aquarium industry, so really, really impressive. Good. I think it comes in two colours at the moment, black and grey. Is that right, Mr. Awazo? Anthracite. I can personally recommend these. I've scaped the 90, 100 and a 60. Now I've got a 60 version at home. Beautiful aquariums. Yeah, we talked about the cabinet, that's all done. Let's talk about the actual aquarium itself. Low iron glass, so we call that Opti-White. Opti-White is actually a trade name for Pilkington glass, but it's low iron glass, and that means it is higher transparency. So when you look through a regular aquarium glass, we call that float glass. When you look through the cross section, it's actually a really dark green colour. When you look through the cross section of this, it's like a light blue. Okay, and that means that's actually a lot more of a transparent glass. And it does actually make a difference, believe it or not. When you're looking at your aquarium, if you've got really clean water, good lighting, you know, you'll really notice that difference in glass. So, you know, it's worth paying for that premium if you really want to get the best aesthetic possible from your aquascape. Minimum silicon work. The silicon is clear, you know, it's transparent, it's not black like a lot of other brands. So the whole kind of concept, the whole philosophy, if you like, is to showcase the aquascape, you know, what's going on inside the aquarium, with as little distraction as possible from outside the aquarium. You just want to be looking at the beautiful thing that you've created. You don't want to be looking at any ugly equipment, basically. That's the idea. So minimalism, basically. Good. I think that's all the equipment talked about. We haven't talked about the lighting. This is a different brand of lighting. So yeah, good quality LED lighting. It's going to grow the plants, no problem. Good. Let's do some aquascaping, shall we? First things first. Normally, when I'm aquascaping at home, I normally have a plan or some kind of sketch, or at least a kind of visualization in my mind what I want to create, and that's normally dictated to by external factors. So like a different company might want to showcase a different plant, or a client might want to do something different. But when you're a hobbyist, you've got the luxury position of you're only limited by your imagination, and actually can be a little bit daunting because, you know, it's infinite, isn't it? So you can use inspiration from the internet, from books, from magazines, from other people, or you can just use nature, or you can use your imagination, you can use dreams, you can use anything you like. That's the beauty of aquascaping. You're not limited by any source of inspiration. There's nothing wrong with copying other people's work, or, you know, you might have a favourite landscape photo that has inspired you that you might want to copy. But it's really good to have a plan, or at least a kind of rough idea of what you want to create, so you have some kind of direction. So with that in mind, I've got a very quick plan. I came in the shop about 40 minutes ago, and I saw some beautiful wood here. So that forms the basis of my plan. Okay, so my aquascaping process is very much largely based on figure out what the hardscape selection I have first. So it's really important to choose, you know, the right hardscape for your plan, or, you know, what you want to copy or what you've been inspired by. And a big mistake is to actually use far too smaller pieces of hardscape. So let's have a little play around, shall we? So we've got some beautiful pieces of wood here. I can't remember the brand name of it. Does anyone know? Is there a member of staff here? Phil, what type of wood's this? Corbo catfish?
What they call
Structure wood?
Structure wood, yeah.
Okay, good. So, you know, you might come in the shop and think, oh, that looks like a nice piece of wood. And it is. Yeah. But if we put it in the tank now, yeah, it looks okay, but it's a little bit underwhelming, isn't it? It's not really, I'm in the way there, aren't I? It's a bit underwhelming, it's not really taking up much space. You're going to really have to rely on the plants to get your impact. So that might be a nice supporting piece of wood, but it's by no means good enough to be a main focal point piece of wood.
Right. So on that one, would you be happy to then add pieces of wood to get the structure?
Yeah, you could do. You could do that way around, or what I like to do is start off with the biggest.
Yeah.
So you get your main focal point. This is a very simple way that I like to aquascape. Think about your main focal point piece of hardscape. This is like your big you know, your big piece, your main thing, your main attraction. So we've got a couple of contenders here, and this has been pre-soaked apparently. So although this one did float a little bit, didn't it?
Just a touch.
Yeah, I've had some interesting experiences with float.
You've got some rock and cable tight, George.
Beautiful piece, isn't it? It'd stand up right like that, just like that. In fact, if you look, it's got a base there, so it makes sense. It is an open top tank, so if this does poke out the top, that's not a drama. There you go, look at this.
That is cool.
So already, you know, we can see when we think about that smaller piece of wood, this one has much more impact, doesn't it? Now we need to think about where, you know, left and right do we put that. So if we go all the way to the left, it's okay. Too much space here, too much negative space. All the way to the right, you know, likewise. So let's kind of balance it out. That's kind of too central. So we want to kind of go, I reckon, around there. Thinking about what other pieces of wood we've got as well, remember. So this one is quite chunky, and I think it's kind of a little bit different. Too different maybe to this piece. So let's try them together and see what they look like. Yeah, it's kind of a bit too bulky, I think, compared to that one. They're a bit too different. We'll put that to one side. This is more like it. So this is in the same kind of family, probably from the same tree, perhaps. So we pop that one next to it, and I think we can see. It looks like they're designed to be together, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It's like they've just found each other. And they're going to live happily ever after in this beautiful aquascape. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let's go down to our smaller piece here.
They actually look reunited, don't they?
They do. And the whole idea is to kind of form a cohesive kind of theme. You know, you can use several pieces of hardscape materials together to create this one cohesive kind of story. You don't have to necessarily just find that one beautiful piece, you know, searching around forever, just try and find that one piece. You can actually, like we're doing today, you know, kind of like a jigsaw, get these pieces together to find one cohesive design. So, now, I'm just going to have a little play around now. And I'll explain what I'm doing in a minute. Perfect, there we go, good. Phew. Okay, so what I've done now, I've kind of interlocked this piece with these here. So we've got this kind of, this definite archway going through the scape here. And it's kind of complemented with these almost perpendicular upright spokes here. And I think it looks really great. It's almost giving us like this kind of natural bay area here, which is kind of making me think about the planting choice, or maybe even cosmetic substrate instead. But I think we're going to go full planted actually. But I'm just kind of thinking, this is why it's good to have a plan. You don't have to like think in front of like 40 people. But no, I'm pleased with that. That's a really strong wood layout, and it's got this kind of, I'm really pleased with it because it still gives us plenty of real estate, plenty of open space around here to plant into. A lot of the more kind of trendy, higher level aquascapers these days really rely a lot on really bold hardscape, and it can take a lot of the room up of the aquarium. So I'm more of an old school kind of nature aquarium scaper. I'm a big fan of like lush planted tanks. You know, we'll talk about the advantages of plants later. But yeah, I'm really happy with this because it gives us plenty of opportunity to grow these plants. Good. Any questions so far? No? I'm doing a really good. Yeah.
Fish, do they really tend to be more of an afterthought? Would you kind of like get your scape, get your setup, and then think what fish would actually work afterwards? Or
Depends on.
I suppose you go both ways, don't you?
Yeah, it depends. For me personally, more recently, I've become more are kind of in tune with the fish. And the fish kind of comes first, and I'll aquascape around the fish. Before, you know, I'll admit, I was just very much, I'm all about the aesthetic, I'm all about the creative part of it. And actually, I was thinking of the fish more in terms of the aesthetic, rather than, you know, we should be creating a beautiful environment for the fish and serve the fish, rather than like as an aquascaper, the fish is kind of serving you from an aesthetic point of view. So there's a mindset shift there recently for me, that as I've become more kind of connected in general with nature and living entities, you know, I think we have a responsibility as hobbyists to give the fish the best we can. You know, and there's a kind of mutual ground. You know, you don't have to like be one or the other. You can still be a passionate aquascaper and still put the fish's needs first. You know, I'm working on a project with Ty Streetman. He's writing a book called Aquatic Habitats Book, and I'm the official photographer. And he is focusing on aquascapes, but they're all trying to mimic where the fish come from in nature. But we're still using the kind of visual guidelines and aesthetic kind of sensibility from high-level aquascaping, but applying that to more traditional biotope aquascapes.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, pretty well.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Cool.
George, can I just ask, is there any of the hardscaping you'd recommend keeping away from as a newbie?
Yeah, I normally recommend just buying hardscape from your retailer rather than getting your own from outside. If you do collect your own outside, you know, do be mindful of local bylaws and things like that, landowners' permission, and the potential, you don't know what's in it, you know, so it could potentially harm your livestock. So it's always good to buy from a reputable retailer. Yeah, and just pre-soak any wood for a while, just to make sure, that kind of thing. Yeah. But always good to pre-soak. I mean, this stuff definitely likes to float. So I don't know if it's been. Hugh, has this been pre-soaked properly?
It has.
Yeah, we got this out of the butt, and it was sinking, didn't we?
Yeah.
Good. So if it floats, it's his fault.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone, that's him. Hugh.
4 weeks of
4 weeks. Okay, thanks, mate. I appreciate that. Hopefully it's not going to dry out super quick in here. Okay, next step. We're happy with the hardscape. We talked about hardscape. We could put some rocks in there. I think I'm just going to go really heavy on plants. I think it's going to be a really nice lush planted tank, using mainly easy plants so people can replicate this at home as well.
So
Okay.
is there any general rule about when more is less and vice versa, or is it just a matter of
To be honest with you,
part of your plan?
it's all down to your own taste as well. So, with regards, do you mean like in terms of aesthetics, more or
Yeah.
less, and like you know,
Yeah.
kind of minimalist versus maximalist kind of thing? In terms of a planted tank, I generally like to go for heavy plants, dense planting, just because of the function of the plants, because they actually add so many benefits to the system. They create oxygen. They compete with algae, shelter and security for the fish. They look beautiful. You have your gardening kind of box ticked because you're trimming and replanting, the kind of horticultural kind of thing going on. And you know, it's easier. Ironically, it's easier to maintain a heavily planted tank than a minimalist tank, because with a minimalist tank, you're generally kind of managing algae all the time, because you haven't got enough plants there to deal with the algae, basically. So always think about in an aquarium, a planted aquarium, you're always kind of fighting algae. You're always having this battle of plant growth versus algae growth, and the trick is to really nail the best plant growth you can possible. You know, and that means have lots of plants and really look after those plants as well as you can, and then that gives algae virtually no chance to thrive. Conversely, if you have a minimalist layout, say like a minimalist iwagumi, so you know, something like this here, and you just had a few bits of hair grass in there, for instance, and you just had all this sand and rock, you know, those few bits of hair grass have got absolutely no chance of defending that aquarium against algae. Whereas if you've got something like this we're doing today, big Amazon swords in the back, maybe some lush stem plants, foreground carpeting plants, mid-ground crypts, big Java ferns and EBS, all, you know, like literally 100 pots of plants in there. you know, versus the one pot in there, you know, algae is absolutely going to love it in there because it's got nothing to fight against. In here, all those plants are like Cheerio algae, you've got no chance. So that's one of the reasons, going back to your original point, sir, is minimalist versus maximalist. You know, in terms of avoiding algae and having something beautiful to look at, you know, heavily planted is the way forward, especially for beginners.
Could I just ask, I have a problem with black owl.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
Oh.
Not to,
up at 15 mil when
Wow. I think there's some evidence suggests that some of this black beard algae is almost adapting to glutaraldehyde. It's almost like become mutant and
the
like
only way I
super.
find getting rid of it is spray with liquid carbon,
Yeah.
post pink, and then
Yeah, I think if you go beyond actually treating the algae, go back beyond that, like what causes it in the first place, and really identify that, and
I
then
think it's gone and bought a plant, so
Yeah.
I think it went that way.
yeah, but identify the cause, keep nuking it with liquid carbon, and hopefully it won't come back again. Yeah.
So what's your view on like just hardscape only tank and with no plants?
Nothing wrong with them, but you will have to manage algae.
Yeah.
So you have to limit. You either limit your photo period, like how long the lights are on for, or the intensity, or both,
Yeah.
because the lighting is what triggers the algae. Have decent algae crew as well. You know, have some algae eaters ideally for hardscape only potentially. Think about where that tank is in your living space. So is it going to get loads of ambient light? You know, it's going to be an algae issue. Basically, it's all about managing algae with hardscape only, and managing, like, for me as a creator, as someone that loves to create new stuff, I just find it really boring just having hardscape only, because it, you know, you set it up and then the fish grow and you look after the fish and that's cool, but in terms of the aquascape development, it's just there's no plant growth, is there?
Yeah, I just feel like something you can do a lot with the sand, with the different textures and
Yeah, could
pebbles,
do.
etc.
Yeah.
I do
It's
like
it-
that look.
Yeah, and there's nothing. Yeah, and there's something quite beautiful about the minimalism of the hardscape only as well. And you can still make them look. You can still make them, you know, with priority of the fish welfare. You know, you can do black water hardscape only. You give leaf litter and you know all that good stuff as well. But yeah, no, nothing wrong with hardscape only. A great way to practice hardscaping skills as well. Yeah, because you haven't got to uproot soil and plants and.
It probably brings more focus on the fish themselves, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because quite a lot of the stuff I like actually trashes the plants.
Yeah, like big cichlids. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I keep Malawi cichlids, and they love to nibble the nubius and stuff. Yeah, absolutely. But what we're doing today, we're focusing a lot on the plants today, and using the plants as an aesthetic as well as the hardscape. So the first thing to consider is the hardscape layout. This is the backbone of the layout. It's like the skeleton. And then we build up the skeleton with the flesh, the plants, and the water. But before we do that, we'll put our soil in. So this is Tropica Aquarium soil.
George,
Hello.
would you mind tilting the LED a bit?
Is it a bit?
Thank you.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Sorry about that.
All right,
They're
Cheers.
a bit bright, aren't they?
Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, I need some scissors.
George, have you got any recommendations on how to piece wood together? Like multiple pieces of wood.
Yeah.
I've tried all sorts, and if I just knock it while doing a water change, it kind of destroys the whole scheme.
Yeah. Have you tried cable ties?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it was precariously placed, so it does make it very difficult to do. Like,
Yeah.
once I'd knocked it, I couldn't get it back into position.
Tissue and glue.
Do you need to like do it in the tank, or can you take the wood out and start again?
It's probably going to come to that.
I think sometimes you just have to bite the bullet.
Yeah.
You know all the energy you spend on trying to take a shortcut to avoid the long hard job.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's quicker just to get done the long hard job
Yeah.
rather than trying to get those little shortcuts.
Have you tried the silicons that go underwater?
I've not tried silicon, that's about the only thing that I haven't tried super glue is tried screwing it.
Because there's a couple of brands that actually go off underwater still, aren't there? So
Yeah.
That Gorilla Glue goes off underwater. It won't harm the fish or anything. Use the gel.
some of them.
Oh,
together
The
with
Gorilla gel.
yeah.
Super glue.
super glue cigarette.
Hate those.
Filtered things.
Right, so this is a specialist plant straight
Yeah.
tropical aquarium soil. It's what I normally use for aquascaping. It's got loads of benefits versus a regular kind of gravel or sand. It contains lots of nutrients. It doesn't need pre-washing like a lot of sands and gravels do. Reduces the aquarium water pH and hardness, which usually provides a better home for your plant roots. Especially useful if you've got to live in a hard water area as well. Most fish and plants prefer it a little bit softer. It comes in two types. You've got the normal type and then you've got the powder type. So this is the normal. Grain size is around sort of 3 millimeters, 3-4 millimeters. And then you've got the powder type. It's exactly the same product, it's just the finer grain basically. And this is more, it's particularly useful for really kind of fine textured rooted plants, like the 1-2 grow pots, which we'll talk about later. A lot of the carping species have really delicate roots, so this is better for that. But it's exactly the same composition, exactly the same product, just a different grain size. Oh yeah, ACD kicking in. Best do that before you fill it with water. So yeah, it's a great product. The nutrients will last a long time. I mean, I like to also dose a liquid fertiliser regularly. So the interesting thing about aquarium plants is that they can take in their nutrients, their food that they need to grow, they can take that in through their roots, so through the soil, but they can also take in the food through their leaves, so through the water. So if we feed the plants a decent soil like this, and also decent liquid fertiliser, then the plant is really spoilt almost, and it will just grow really healthy, really robust, and then that means less chance of algae. You know, I talk about algae a lot in planted tanks, and that's because, you know, it's the #1 reason people leave the hobby, and that's a real tragedy for me. You know, when someone's left the hobby, you know, that's really sad. It's sad for everyone, sad for the industry. So if we can like educate people on how to, you know, prevent algae, I think that's a really good thing. And I think one of the best things to do that, and the loveliest ways to do that in the aquarium hobby, is to grow aquarium plants successfully. So if we start off with a really good substrate like this, and then we feed them with a good liquid fertiliser, and we start off with good quality aquarium plants to start with, which we'll talk about later. All these things, good quality light, quality filter for circulation and water quality, you know, all these things added together, they give you the highest chance of success with your aquascaping. And you can't really, you know, it's only going to be as successful as its weakest link. You know, if you have really great plants, really great soil, everything's brilliant, but you've got rubbish lighting, then it's just a complete, you know, failure. Vice versa, if you've got like loads of light, but you've only got 1 or 2 plants, the plants aren't going to be able to use all that light, and you're just going to get loads of algae. So you just kind of have to keep everything in a bit of a balance.
So what would be your tip to help, like, not, can you ever put too much nutrients in the tank? And obviously you'd be constantly fighting algae.
It's a hot topic, to be honest, dosing nutrients. And there's lots of different approaches to it, but I'll keep it very simple and keep it to the way that works for me. And it isn't everyone's cup of tea, that's all I'll say. So I deliberately add too many liquid fertilisers. I deliberately add them every day, a little bit too many. And what that means is the plants never go hungry. And because the plants have got access to good CO2 injection, good lighting, good circulation, good soil, there's lots of plants, all these conditions mean that the plant almost can't have too many nutrients. They actually, in nature, they exhibit a thing called luxury uptake, which means they deliberately take in more nutrients than they need when there's an abundance of it. So we can use that we can exploit that in the aquarium environment, and we can actually deliberately add too many fertilisers. The plant will happily use it before the algae will. So it's always better to slightly, in my experience, better to overdose a little bit too much. The plant will use it. If you underdose, if you deliberately kind of starve the plant, there's the danger that the plant will go hungry, it'll show nutrient deficiencies, it will become unhealthy, and then one of the biggest triggers for algae growth is an unhealthy plant. And you'll often see algae will first appear on unhealthy plant leaves, and that's why the plant is actually secreting special chemicals that attract the algae. So, you know, I talk about algae a lot, it's a really important topic. Best way to kind of defend it in the long term, and the most beautiful way to defend it, is through creating a lush planted aquarium. I'm really rambling, but I love it anyway, it's all good. Okay, any questions on the soil? It has a high cation exchange capacity. I love saying that. CEC, it means it takes in the nutrients from the water and it makes those nutrients available to the roots.
So it kind of recharges itself?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is what I'm saying. If you use the soil in conjunction with a liquid fertiliser, then the plants are going to take in the nutrients through the leaves, the soil's going to take in through the nutrients through the water, the plants are going to take in nutrients through the soil, and it's all this like nutrient laden water soil mixture that helps healthy because of that, and then they'll defend themselves.
What kind of, when you talk about like a finite amount of nutrients within the soils and everything,
Yeah.
but with what you're just talking about there, do you say that there's a longevity to a setup, or could you keep it going indefinitely?
Keep it going
because it's going to be recharging itself.
Yeah, you can keep it going indefinitely, and you can get nutrition capsules as well. So that's,
I mean, there's
target
things you
feed,
plug
yeah.
in. I know you do that with specific, really big hungry plants, don't you? Like the big Amazon swords and things.
Yeah,
you can actually put root tabs into them specifically. But
Yeah. One of the things that restricts like super long term, like 10 years plus with this substrate, is actually after a few years, it tends to which dusts up a lot easier. But yeah, it will actually, after a while, after like a few years, like I say, it will start to kind of degrade a little bit. And if you've got like loaches or corydoris, and as they kind of swim over the soil and disturb it, that can lift up your kind of your detritus and cloud up the water a little bit. So actually, my recommendation is if you do use a soil substrate and you plan to have some open areas, then you might want to consider any digging, not having any digging catfish, etc. Any digging fish, basically.
Is there any particular reason you put the hardscape in and then the soil rather than the hardscape on top of the soil?
Mainly, yeah, sometimes I put the soil in first. Mainly it's to help just keep it, I'm a little bit concerned it might float, if I'm honest with you. So that's going to help prevent that.
Part of that
It also
arch has vanished, doesn't it?
Yeah, yes, exactly. But it looks quite natural as it's coming out, because this is like the earth, and this is like coming out of the earth, so it looks quite natural. And we can use that kind of natural effect with stones as well. When we're positioning, if we position stones, I like to partially bury the stone so it looks like it's popping out of the earth, kind of thing. Okay, still need a little bit more soil around there.
So what would be your the ideal depth for like a carpeting plant?
There isn't really an optimum depth for any particular plant. It just needs to be deep enough to support the root structure, and then the deeper it is, the more nutrient store you're going to have, basically. And you can consider depth in terms of aesthetics as well. So the deeper the substrate is at the back, if we had this like really here like this, which we could do. When you're viewing the tank from straight on, the actual tank looks like an optical illusion that's deeper than it really is. So we can use these kind of tricks as well to, optical illusions. I think that's not gonna sink, float even. It's not gonna sink. Where's Hugh? I'll put him in anyway. It's all right. No, it's all right. But yeah, it's this is the first workshop I've done in this size scape line. Actually, it's quite nice to work with.
You didn't say what size is that? Is it 90 by 45?
It's the 100, is it?
100,
Yeah. So this is 100 by 50 by 50.
Yeah.
So it's 250 litres. About 50 US gallons, 55 US gallons or so. Not that anyone's from the United States here, but my audience are. Hello. Probably need one more bag, I reckon. So I'm mixing up the the powders and the normal type, it doesn't matter. All the plants we're using, they're not going to be fussy about that. So if you're wondering, why is George mixing up if you're really observant and you notice that, then well done. Bit more at the front, I reckon.
What sort of gravel can you use underneath them? Because them bags can be quite expensive.
Oh yeah, you can use bulking agents. Yeah, so for instance, you could use something like JBL volcano. It's like a crushed volcano, like lava rock. Anything inert you could put underneath this. You could put even the Tropica substrate as well. That contains nutrients. It's designed to be used underneath a regular substrate. But anything basically. The only issue is it's best usually not to put regular like sand underneath. Regular sand tends to compact, and you can get like a build-up of anaerobic bacteria, things like that. So you want, if you do put a base layer, just make sure it's porous, has plenty of opportunity for gaseous exchange.
And if you're like trying to create an undulating sort of topography, for want of a better term,
Yeah.
and you're starting to get quite high at the back,
Yeah.
do you ever put anything in there to sort of retain the soil to stop it moving?
Yeah, you
It
can.
moves over time.
Yeah, you can do. It does like to slope forward, doesn't it, over time? What you can do is, I don't think I've got any handy, but plastic kind of corrugated. You use it in like packaging. Like corrugated corrugated cardboard, but plastic, like a plastic version. It's inert. And you can cut that into whatever size you want, and you just like insert that in. So who asked the question? Yeah.
We
Yeah.
see 84 sheep for about £7.
There you go. So yeah, as long as it's inert, you can put anything in the tank. As long as it's inert, it's not going to like dissolve and affect the water chemistry. Aquascaping. You kind of think it's basically you're creating an underwater sculpture in your aquarium. We're using natural materials, but you don't have to. And a lot of aquascapers these days are doing kind of really intricate stuff. They're actually gluing. They're getting kind of tiny twigs, and then gluing them onto bigger twigs, and creating these really elaborate structures. So, yeah, as long as it's inert, that's what I'm saying. You can put anything in your aquarium.
So what's the view on you see a lot of YouTubers doing now like the biotypes?
Yes.
What's your your view on them?
Biotype.
Having the real thick substrate to kind of reduce the nitrates or kind of do it all itself, that kind of thing.
Oh, you mean like
Lecture aquariums.
you mean like a Diana Welstad soil dirted tank?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of-
I think it's important to clarify the difference between biotype aquascaping and dirted tanks. So you're referring to a methodology of aquarium keeping with the dirted tank with filtration methods, whereas biotype is actually a completely. That's all right. It was just important because people might get confused. That's the only thing. In terms of dirted tanks, I have no experience on them, so that's an easy one. I don't know enough about them to have an opinion. Yeah. I like this style. Yeah. Because it works. And it works countless times and it's repeatable. The thing is with the one thing I do know about the dirted style, whatever you want to call low tech, El Natural, whatever method, Diana Welstad, it's not as predictable because you're dealing with a lot more organic materials, which by the nature don't behave as predictably as a mass-produced product under strict rules.
So the tropical soil, does that naturally let the water filtrate through it constantly as well?
It will do if it's got plants in it.
It will,
Yeah. If it's just there with nothing, the water's just going to sit there.
Yeah.
But plants, through plant growth, through root growth, they produce oxygen, and they like a capillary reaction. They'll circulate the water through that way. Good. Okay, should we start planting?
Yes.
Right, foreground. I normally do foreground, midground, background, and then finally attach my epiphyte plants to the wood. We've got all our plants here. James, where's my mate James? Here he is. Time to be the star of the show, mate. We're going to round of applause for James, everyone. How good are you at preparing one to grow?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Find out.
Yes, no pressure. We've got, I'm hoping we've got loads of Monte Carlo in here. Oh, what's that guy? Oh, yes. We do all of those, hair grasses. Yeah. I'll talk about them in more detail. We've got a bucket somewhere for, is that a white bucket? For the rubbish? What's there? Oh, right, nice. Can we have a rubbish bag as well? Bin bag, that'd be great. Okay, so I'm going to talk about plants for a little while. So these are all Tropica aquarium plants. Oh, where's Phil? Is he here? I don't know if they actually supported this event or not. So anyway, Tropica, I'm another ambassador, content creator for Tropica. They are, I'm not just saying it because I work for them, but they are regarded as like the best in the world, aquarium plants. They have a huge greenhouse in Denmark, and they have their own laboratories as well, where they grow these plants in particular. These are called a 1-2 grow. So these are actually grown, like I say, in laboratory conditions. I've literally seen where these are grown. I know the people that grow them. And they're great. They look really small, and you know, people are like £6 for this little pot. Well, actually, there's literally hundreds of little plants in there. And that's one of the main advantages, actually, of these versus a regular pot. So let's just give you an example here. Perfect example. So when people they see that versus that, they think this is more value because it's bigger, taller, right? Bigger impact. But actually, there's only probably 3 or 4 plants there. There's actually probably 200 in there, and they're the same price. Okay. So another advantages of these are that they're guaranteed to be free from algae. They're grown in laboratories, sterile conditions, no algae, no pest snails, no diseases, no pesticides. So if you keep shrimp, hands up, you keep shrimp. If you buy your plants from anywhere that comes from Asia, the chances are that they've been treated with pesticides. If you put those plants in your shrimp tank, you'll be talking parts per billion of a pesticide, and it will wipe your shrimp out. So 1-2 grow, guaranteed to be pesticide free. So they're really good for shrimp tanks, especially. Another cool advantage of these is that they, I'll talk about a bit more depth about how the plants grow. So when the plants are grown in greenhouses, I'm going to get this is not a very nice specimen. When the plants are grown, called aquarium plants or aquatic plants, they don't actually grow the water in the greenhouses. They're grown out of water, and just the bottom part of this pot is situated in basically a growing table, and it's called hydroponics. Some of you may have heard of hydroponics. So the base of this pot is in circulating nutrient-rich water, and then the plant is growing out of the water. The great thing about plants growing out of water is they have loads of access to CO2 in the air. They can grow really robust, physically stronger because they have to support themselves in the air. And they're actually much more adaptable as well when they do eventually go in your aquarium. So it makes sense that these are grown hydroponically. They get them in the aquarium shop, like we've got here, straight from the boxes. These are literally, yesterday these were in Denmark, today or yesterday they're now in the shop. Fresh, perfectly fresh. And I'd always recommend, especially if you're creating a new aquascape with potentially a big plant purchase, if you're buying 5, 10 plus pots at once, do have a chat with your aquarium store owner, and they can probably do a special order for you, or at least tell you when the next shipment will come in, and then get them as fresh as you can. Because what happens in a lot of shops, and it's no disrespect to the shops that do this, what happens is they come in from Tropica, from the greenhouses. They've been grown out of water hydroponically, and then these will now go in the shops underwater systems. So now this plant has to adapt to grow underwater, which is what it's going to have to do in your aquarium, okay? And that's okay. Now the potential issue is if the shop doesn't have optimum conditions where it's storing this plant, it's slowly going to start dying perhaps, or slowly get algae or potential snail eggs, etc. So it's a really good idea to get them as fresh as you can. Ideally, if you can, my recommendation is to go for the 1-2 grow. If you can get the species that you want in the 1-2 grow. There's about 60, I think, 60 or 70 species now in the tropical 1-2 grow. Phil will order you them in, especially. If you need any specific species, they can order them in especially for you. But these are my favourite, and then you can get obviously potted. Some species aren't available in this, like for instance the Java fern isn't available in the 1-2 grow yet. Any questions on plant growing and stuff? It's quite I find it absolutely fascinating. It's quite it can be quite a complex topic. The main thing you need to know today is that we're mainly using easy plants. So these will almost all grow without CO2 injection. They don't necessarily need a lot of light. If I do use any more difficult plants, I'll let you know, and then we'll talk about that separately.
So, sorry, you briefly mentioned pest snails.
Yeah.
Have you come across a way to tackle them if you do get them yet that you know that works?
Assassin snails.
Yeah.
I tried that and then now I've got hundreds of assassin snails.
Yeah, pest snails are a tricky one. I was thinking about this yesterday.
Get nust turtles, that's what we did.
I quite like.
I've got one of them.
I think they're okay. I think it's like algae. It's a warning. It's nature's warning sign that something's not quite right. So
I know they can be good to the aquarium.
yeah, I mean, if you have a few background level of ramshorn snails, even the bladder snails, it's an indication that that things aren't right. So pest snails only eat basically rotten food, detritus, or rotten plants. So if you have a really clean aquarium with healthy plants, not overfed, not overstocked with fish, well maintained, you're never going to have a snail problem.
No.
I can guarantee anyone with a snail issue, somewhere along the line, has neglected their aquarium. How you can kind of define neglect is subjective, of course, but the fact that you've got a perceived level of too many snails, you have, I perceive, you've neglected your aquarium somewhere, basically. And it's the same with algae. And it's just one of those things you have to learn to accept. Nature will deal stuff at you. You're unexpected sometimes. You'll get an algae bloom. You think you're doing everything perfectly, but there'll be something. Nature doesn't read the books. Yeah. And it's the same with snails. But snails is usually lack of maintenance and overfeed. They won't proliferate. They have such a short life cycle that you can just by a month or two of relentless maintenance, feeding appropriate amounts of food and having appropriate stocking of fish and maintenance practice, you should be able to manage any snail problem within 8 weeks. Yeah, there's no excuse really. Same with algae. It's hard to say because it kind of, you don't like to tell people that they're doing stuff wrong, but the fact that you've got algae and you can't get rid of it, you're doing something wrong. I'm sorry. It's not the algae's fault. It's it's down to you. And I get algae, and I have dramas, and I learn to deal with them. And the great thing about what I do is I have the platform to hopefully educate people to make it easier for them, so they don't have to make the same mistakes I did.
Obviously, setting up a new scape, the wood gets kind of that slime on it.
Yeah.
Would you tackle that head on, or would you leave that do its thing?
I'd tackle that. Yeah, toothbrush. It's basically like a fungal biofilm stuff. It's pretty harmless usually. But I normally scrub it off with a toothbrush and siphon it out at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's a top tip actually. If you do any maintenance in your aquarium and you're disturbing the hardscape or disturbing the substrate to the point where you can see wastes kind of floating around, you should do a water change. Because basically all that stuff that's been now floating around the tank is containing algae spores. It's got ammonia-rich bacteria that's going to trigger algae. So yeah, if you disturb anything, basically follow up with a water change. James, you're doing a great job, mate. Thank you.
Thanks. What's the hourly rate?
We'll chat later.
We'll
chat offline, James. Come on. This is not what we agreed.
Is it true that Tropica are looking at having a grow factory in the UK?
No.
No.
No. simple answer.
So, sorry, what is that you're spraying on there now?
Oh, this is just water.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm just spraying the water, stop the plants from drying out. This is another. I'm digressing. Talking about another advantages of the ones who grow is that they're actually grown. A lot of them are now grown in like a liquid. A lot of them used to be grown in like an agar jelly, which is quite messy to deal with. But now a lot of them are grown in this liquid, which contains all the growth nutrients, the growth hormones, etc. And this is what they're growing in the laboratories. And the great thing about this is actually the plant has adapted itself to grow underwater already. So you know we talked about the plants, they're growing hydroponically and they're growing out of water in the greenhouses. They've not adapted to grow underwater yet. So when I put this in here and fill it up with water, the plant has to go through quite a significant amount of energy and time to transform itself to be able to grow underwater. But the great thing about these is that because they've been grown in this nutrient-rich liquid, it's kind of adapted to grow underwater already. So we can pop that in now, and that will grow. That will start growing right away. Whereas this one will take some time before it starts growing properly, because it has to adapt to its submersed underwater state.
Is that where adding the extra nutrients would help?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's a really good point. And it's important, and that's why it's important to, when you do buy these type of plants, these potted plants, to buy them as fresh as you can. Because what could happen is, let's say this pot here went, in no disrespect to the shop's facilities here, but let's say it went in their holding tank for a few weeks, and it's adapted, no problem, to the shop's water. You come, you live 2 hour drive away. I bought this plant, I live 2 hour drive away. I take this plant home now. My tap water is very different to the water here. This plant is adapted to growing the water here, but not adapted to my water. So actually, this will struggle now in my tap water. However, if I bought this fresh, like today, because it's been grown hydroponically and not adapted to underwater yet, when I take it home, it's going to adapt much better. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's an adaptation thing of underwater.
Would temperature affect it at all?
Yeah, temperature affects everything living. So all biological processes, the rate of, basically, the warmer the thing is, the quicker things work. That's a really simple way of putting it.
Yeah.
So a discus tank, for instance, you're running like 28C plus 30C. When you're dealing with like higher levels, high 20s, oxygen levels are lower. The fish's demands are higher. They're respiring more quickly. They're breathing more laboured. Their demand for food is more. Demand for oxygen is more, but the oxygen levels are lower. So warmer water is actually a nightmare. If you can get away with not having warm water, then always go on the cooler side if you can. Algae is more risky at higher temperatures because all living processes are working more quickly. So your fish are producing more waste. Your plants are producing more waste. Plants produce waste as well. And the warmer the water, everything's happening more quickly. So I always, a tropical system, I normally run most regular community fish, 23, 22, 23.
What's that, about 75?
70, yeah, 74, 77 is 25, I know that. And 82 is 28.
Because Betta's run about 78 to 80, isn't it? And then
Yeah.
my other tank is 75.
Okay. Yeah, I think the good news about most freshwater tropicals is that they tolerate a quite good range. So hitting a specific level is actually can be a little bit, not actually that important. Yeah.
Can the temperature actually affect the plant growth?
Yes, yeah. So the warmer the temperature, the quicker the plant will want to grow. So you need to match that with everything else. So it will need more CO2. It will want more light. It will want more food. If you don't match it all, then algae will match it for you.
Yeah.
Basically.
So what would be the recommended temperature normally, would you say?
For most aquascapes with regular fish, 23, 24.
Would that include angels?
Yeah, if they're tank bred. Yeah, if they're regular. Yeah, hardy angels.
I've got mine about 26. So
Yeah, that's fine.
struggles to keep up there.
Yeah, I mean, energy consumption is an issue these
Yeah,
days. If you
that's
want to
what I'm thinking.
reduce energy costs, then consider going temperate, or subtropical. Like cherry barbs. There's loads of white cloud mountain minnows, golden barbs, Odessa barbs, black willow tetras. arguably neon tetras in a decent, like centrally heated home, like 22. You can go with neon tetras. Yeah. I'm rambling again. Right, we need to plant tweezers. Okay, I'm going to start in the foreground with some tweezers, ideally.
So when it comes to planting, do you like to mix the colours, or do you like to just go for like a bold lot of greens, or
Normally
different?
greens, I like greens, and then a red I normally use as a focal point colour.
Yeah.
So if you had loads of reds dotted around the scope, it'd look really chaotic and your eye wouldn't be able to settle down. So it's really important to kind of use your focal points.
Red always draws the eye, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly, usually. Okay, so top tip, split your plant up into portions, which James has kindly done. With hairgrass, you can actually kind of unravel it when it comes in its 1-2 grow pot. It kind of naturally grows in like a spiral, and you can kind of unravel it, and then you can peel up the little portions like so. So it's about a centimetre or 2 portion there. Grab your tweezers and then just pop it in. There we go. And then do one end, one the other. And then you can get, and then one in the middle. And then you just divide it up half and half each time, and then you get a guaranteed equal coverage. There you go, top tip.
Sorry, so when it comes to
Do you want to
some
do some
hairgrass
planting,
today,
James?
No, you're alright. I'll
No?
just do the prep.
Okay, mate.
Unless you want me to.
Wow.
You're the star of the show after all.
I'm just thinking time, we're going to be here on time otherwise, but I'm quite happy. I'm paid all day, so I don't care. If you guys are happy, then I'm happy. How long has that been like that for? Do we know?
It's just out.
Oh, okay.
No longer live streaming.
Oh well, never mind. So anyway.
so what's your view on liquid CO2 then?
I'm not a big fan of it really. It's a nasty chemical. It's useful for spot dosing algae.
Yeah.
And so it's useful as a treatment, but I wouldn't use it regularly as a go-to product. It's not good. It's based on glutaldehyde, which is nasty.
Yeah.
It's a biocide. It's designed to clean surgical instruments.
Not good.
But it's diluted, obviously, with in the aquarium. Is Hugh around? Can you get?
I don't know, but going back to the CO2 and the in-tank versus out-tank.
Yeah.
Obviously one has micro bubbles within the tank.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if you've got an inline one, it's more, there's less mist. But is there a benefit of having a mist as opposed to not having a mist?
Yeah, well actually you'll get more mist than an inline.
Really?
Yeah, it'll be a finer
Mist.
mist and you'll see it like throughout the whole tank more, which is actually a good thing. So it's interesting because we're going quite advanced now, but plants will actually, when you hit a plant with CO2 gas, like as you would with a CO2 microbubble, the plant will kind of think that it's getting CO2 gas as it's like in the air, so it'll grow better, as opposed to CO2 that's been 100% dissolved in the water.
Okay, so there's a benefit to have it being hit by an undissolved CO2 bubble.
You'll get better plant growth. It's just aesthetically not as pleasant for most people to see a mist around the whole tank. You can get a reactor which will 100% dissolve the CO2 before it gets in the water.
But then that negates one of the benefits of having a
Yeah.
bubble hit.
Yeah,
hit
but
the
I don't know what the benefits are as a percentage. You know, if it's like 2%.
Yeah, no.
Just have to turn it up a little bit.
Yeah.
A couple of extra bubbles. That's what I use a reactor.
Yeah, but you just use more of it to compensate. Yeah, that's fair enough.
So your spacing between the carpet plants, do you have a kind of rule of thumb?
No, as many as it takes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Width of your thumb.
You can't really plant so heavily. As long as the plant's got access to light and circulating water, then you can plant as heavy as you like.
It just depends how quick you want the carpet to be thicken up, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we'll get a full carpet in a few weeks here, I guess.
Monte Carlo is a good carpet.
So, right, asking as a non-proper aquascaper at all,
Yeah.
right? Is your theory the plants are basically the thing that's going to cap in the soil? Or because I tended to think of when you use soil substrates about capping them.
No, this is a treated. This is a commercially treated soil, so it's been pelletized and baked.
Okay.
So it's designed to be used as an all-in-one complete system. So you just fill it with water, and it stays as it is.
Yeah.
Just don't fill it too hard because it will powder up if you disturb it too much. But it's not like digging up earth from the ground. It is like that, but it's been treated.
Yeah.
But,
I kind of thought particularly when the pelletized, bigger grade. Yeah.
But no, it's good stuff. It's basically volcanic ash, based on that.
Is it?
Yeah. In Japan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if that's the case, then it starts off pretty inert, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So it's relied on everything they've put into it, right?
Well, depending on where it's settled on the earth, it's taking in nutrients from surrounding.
Some of them say it leaches ammonia, doesn't it, in the first
Yeah,
few
well,
weeks?
it leach ammonia. Yeah, that's a good point actually. So this product will, in the first few weeks, you may get an ammonia spike, which is actually a good thing, especially if you're using a new filter. It will just seed your filter. And ammonia is actually a plant food as well, contains nitrogen. Ideally, you don't want to expose too many ammonia spikes because it can trigger algae, and of course you shouldn't be stocking any livestock whilst you've got any ammonia in your tank. I'm assuming people know the nitrogen cycle. Yeah, I don't need to. That's better. Thank you. Well, every day is safety day.
So I was going to say that is the trip hazard.
That's when you're at a hard man, you always hit your head, don't you?
Yeah.
So this is, did we talk about this plant in particular? Eleocharis acicularis mini hairgrass basically. It won't get much longer than that, and it will send out little runners and new shoots, and eventually you'll get a whole dense lawn going across.
How long did it take you to learn all the Latin names though?
That's a big one.
I don't know. I'm still learning all the time, to be honest.
Something.
Yeah, it's like learning a different language, isn't it? It's my job, so I use them every day. It's just, it just is what it is. I don't know how to pronounce them half the time. I just say them with confidence, and then
That's the thing.
no one questions it. Yeah.
It's fun when you come across something new and weird, you have to break them down, don't you?
Yeah.
Just to come out with something that doesn't sound stupid.
They always sound a bit like a Harry Potter spell.
Yeah.
Lady Garten. I don't know.
So how did you get into aquascaping?
It's actually my ex-wife's idea. So thanks, Janine, if you're watching. She won't be.
Is that the stress of the first marriage? Or?
Plus the live stream's gone down, hasn't it?
Has it gone down?
Oh, is it still back up?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was in the Air Force, and we had a friend that had a cichlid tank, actually African cichlid tank, and it was really nice. And my wife was like, "Oh, why don't we get one?" So I fancied a planted tank because I've always loved nature and like walking in woodland and stuff like that. So I just fancied having a little bit of a slice of nature. So yeah, it's actually a dual Rio 125. There's a dual Rio tank there. It's actually a smaller version of that one, and made the usual mistakes. Bought a load of house plants that were sold as aquarium plants, but they're actually house plants. And did some research, and then one thing led to another. And then I was bought a book called Nature Aquarium World, Book 1, by Takashi Amano. I think it was on Christmas, probably 2003. So nearly 20 years ago. And I kind of knew I liked planting aquariums because I was kind of succeeding. I was starting to grow plants and stuff myself. And I started to dabble with CO2 injection. This was in the early 2000s, so your hobby was really, the aquascaping hobby was pretty much unknown then. CO2 injection was unavailable pretty much. I had to go like a 2-hour round trip. And I opened this book, Takashi Amano's book, and it really, you know, one of those life-changing moments almost. It was just like, whoa, I just looked at these aquascapes and it just really blew my mind. Like, really quite powerful connection with what I was looking at. And I kind of knew then, I relentlessly obsessed about aquascaping and that style of aquascaping and how to grow aquarium plants properly. And I've got, and I know why now, and I didn't know this until recently, I've got ADD, and I didn't know this, literally got diagnosed quite recently as a 45-year-old male. It's quite weird. And it makes me really obsessive. If I get into something, I get like super obsessive about it, and that's what I did about aquascaping. And I just, yeah, I went on all the, it wasn't Facebook or Instagram or even YouTube back then. We just had like these internet message boards, and I would go on there and I would just like be a sponge, and I would just listen and just read and learn. And I'd follow like people like Tom Barr, who's still around now. And he's, you know, he's a bit more of a science background, and I just kind of, I was just a sponge. And I got to the point where I was starting to educate people on the forums. I was starting to be to the point where, you know, I had the knowledge and the experience now where I could pass it on to other people on the forums. And I became a moderator on a couple of forums. And then 2000, sort of moving on now to 2006, I started having really great success with these plants, growing these plants. And I was growing carpets of glossostigma, which is like an advanced carpeting plant, which is, you know, back then was, you know, real bee's knees if you could grow this plant. And I was reading Practical Fish Keeping magazine. I was a subscriber to them, and there's a couple of contributors, and they were, you know, talking about planted aquariums and aquascaping. And some of the stuff that they were talking about was actually contrary to what I was experiencing. So they were saying things like nitrates and phosphates cause algae in the planted tank and things like this. And I was experiencing the opposite. And so I'd actually write a letter in. I actually physically wrote a letter in, like a handwritten letter, and actually included a printed photograph of my aquarium. And I said, you know, some of the stuff, I love your magazine, blah, blah, blah. By the way, some of the stuff you printed is wrong. This is the proof. What are you going to do about it? And they were like, oh, we really like your aquarium. Can we come and see you? And I was in the Air Force then. This is 2006 now. Yeah, and I was deployed to the Falkland Islands for a four-month tour. If you didn't know, the Falkland Islands are still active, and we're defending them against the Argentinians still, if you didn't know that. So I was over there looking after all the weapons systems that are fitted to the Tornado aircraft. And I said to them, oh, I can't have you over to my house because I haven't got an aquarium right now. I'm going to the Falklands. However, I can write, and I have some cool photos. Do you want me to start writing for the magazine? And they were like, yes. So that's when I started writing for PFK, and that's when I started. That was like the original, how I became almost like an aquarium influencer, if you like. This is really early days, but I would use that kind of leverage as a contributor to a really well-known magazine, and say, you know, if you give me free plants, you know, you can go in this magazine. So that's how I started a relationship with Tropica in 2006. So they'd send me free plants, and then I would feature them in a magazine. And for about 10 years, almost monthly, I would write articles in there and be on their Ask the Expert panel on aquascaping and planted tanks. And that's how it all really started, you know, my kind of taking aquascaping into a career level. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
It's quite a good answer, wasn't it? Quite a long one. Yeah, one of my longer ones, that one. It's good practice, because I'm doing a keynote presentation in Orlando next week. So I'm going to talk about basically my story. Well, actually, the whole story is why aquascape. Like why? There's so many things about how to aquascape, like we're doing today. But actually, why? Why do we do it? That's a more important question, I think.
So do you have like a list of people that you listen to that you take on board a lot, like influencers or people high up?
In terms of aquariums?
Yeah, and like plants, etc. that you go to and watch on a daily?
I consume, I tend to create more than I consume now.
Yeah.
So I'm very careful of what I consume because of the nature of social media. It's very, can be quite a complex thing to deal with, especially in my position. So I'll create content, I'll post it, and then in terms of consuming content, I actually don't consume much aquarium content at all anymore because it's day in, day out what I do, 24/7.
Yeah.
I do work closely with academics and professionals, you know, at the top of their game, so I kind of align myself with people that probably no one would have heard of here because they're not in the public space, but that's who I get my genuine knowledge from, if you like.
You tend to I go onto YouTube like as a beginner trying to learn stuff.
Yeah, and that can be great, but it can also be dangerous because there's a lot of conflicting
different videos
advice
saying
and
different things.
not to say any one particular advice is wrong, it's if you use them together, then it's wrong because they're not designed to be used together. That's the thing with advice, especially with aquariums. If you do, top tip with anyone who's a beginner especially, use social media by all means, Facebook groups, etc. But just be careful of who you listen to. You know, look at their tanks. You know, do they know what they're talking about, or are they just repeating of someone else? So just look for some credibility, and just take advice, from people that deserve to be heard, and not just someone with the biggest voice necessarily. Rant over. Good. Right, we're almost done with the hair grass. We can fill that out in a bit later. I'm quite keen to move on to a different plant now, but we'll keep them wet for now. Oh, I'll tell you what. Where's James? Do you want to do some Monte Carlo?
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks, mate. I'm going to go on to some more mid-groundy stuff while James prepares some Monte Carlo. We've talked about the advantages of that, but this is a beautiful crypt. This tiny undulatus red. It grows to about this kind of height. It has beautiful kind of a narrow wavy leaf that can turn like a browny red, greeny variations depending on the light and nutrient levels. But that's a beautiful plant. And again, it's stored in this nutrient-rich liquid. Just take out of there. And then what we do then is we could just pop that in one group like so, but what I like to do is actually split it up that way. You could, there's probably arguably 20 individual plants there if you wanted to divide them up enough. So like I say, really great value for money. They're really small, but they'll grow quite big quite quickly because they've adapted already, haven't they, to their underwater state, which we discussed already.
There's no real rule of thumb of ripping it apart.
No, just be brave.
Worry about killing it.
Just be brave. Just do it with purpose.
Don't pull it by the leaves.
No, you'll get there. Just like it's a nap. But do it with purpose. Don't mess around. Get in there. And if it's a good quality plant, it will kind of, it will adapt and right itself, and start to grow relatively quickly. In this beautiful space.
I suppose the tweezers help as well, because I can imagine they're quite narrow.
Yeah, I mean tweezers are essential, really, especially with the delicate rooted stuff. You imagine trying to plant this with your fingers.
It'd be impossible.
You wouldn't be able to do it. And when I first planted my first ever aquarium, I actually, and some of you may have done this already. In fact, let's have a hands up who's done this. Bought an aquarium plant and put the whole pot and the plant in one go. Yeah. Yeah. Anyone admitting that? Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Back in the day.
Back in the day. But you didn't know. The knowledge wasn't there back then. No excuse now. My book's out. Can't go wrong. I'm working on another book soon. This is a secret. In fact, is that still rolling?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll tell you later. I'll tell you now, actually. Around the world in 50 scapes. So basically go around the world travelling and then film and record, like photograph the best 50 aquascapes around the world. Make like a video series and a book out of it. Who'd buy that book? Anyone?
Good.
When's it available?
Don't know yet. Have to organise it first.
Let's start it first, yeah.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the
That's the
birthday.
thing with me. I get all these crazy ideas and actually implementing them is different.
You can have a lockdown, so you're stuck at home. Good time to do it.
Can we get stock of the books in the shop as well?
You can, yeah. You'll have to go through the publisher. Yeah, I'll forward you the details. Yeah.
See, George, what was the teaser for the biotope book? I was really disappointed it's not going to be out in next year.
It's a
Can you
long
speed
time.
up a bit?
Yeah, no, I can't speed it up. I can flat out. Yeah, it's what it is. It's going to be worth the wait. That's all. Yeah. Ty's a really great guy. Anyone that knows, you've seen my videos with Ty. He's a real academic. He's a real he knows, and he's been there as well. He's been to the Amazon. He's lived there for 3 years. And he's passionate as well about the hobby, about the fish. And some of the stories is just insane. But yeah, it'd be a great book. For those that don't know yet, if you are on social media, if you follow hashtag Aquatic Habitats book on Instagram, I'm now at my mate's house. He's writing his book. It's basically 60 aquascapes, all based on different biotopes. So for those that don't know, a biotope is a representation of the natural habitat. So for instance, if we did a biotope on, African cichlids from Lake Maui, you'd use that specific species from that little area with those specific rocks, with that specific sand, fed on that specific food, with that specific temperature, with that specific water chemistry. And you're really trying to mimic these conditions to promote the best conditions in the fish. The maximum welfare of the fish, promote potential breeding behaviour, and just really beautiful sort of naturalistic aquascapes. But what we're doing is we're using elements, compositional elements of higher level aquascaping and applying them to these natural habitats. So you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting something beautiful to look at, but something that's beautiful for the fish to live in as well. Because I've had this mind. I was chatting about it earlier. That's really annoying me. We were chatting about it earlier that as a fish keeper, you should. The fish aren't there. The fish should, in my opinion, and it might be controversial, but the fish shouldn't be there to serve you, which is kind of, I think, a lot of human mindset comes from. But actually, we're there to serve the fish. It's a privilege for us to be able to keep those fish. So the least we can do is give them the best home that we can. So, I think a lot of kind of modern human society is based on this consumer culture, instant gratification, where they see a pretty fish, they want it, and they want it now. It's a living thing, it's a living entity, and we all share this planet together, so they deserve a bit more respect. Here endeth today's lesson. So yeah, a bit controversial, but that's where I am with fish keeping these days. And this book, Aquatic Habitats book, is is a huge sort of step forward in that education, I think. But we're digressing from beautiful aquascaping, aren't we? This is what we're doing today.
What are you adding there, George? I missed it.
Say again?
What plant are you adding there?
This one. This is actually, I actually thought it was another crypt, but it's a different plant. This is actually Altananthera reinekii mini. So this is actually a bright red stem plant. It actually stays quite short. This is really important that we position this appropriately. Now, it's quite controversial, and we're actually going to go for quite a symmetrical layout here, almost like an island composition. And this red stem plant is going to act like a really nice transition from the bright green hairgrass up to the wood. So, like before, we can separate that into individual portions. Can we see that? Lots of different stems, and we can plant that as, spread that out as much as we dare, basically.
There's a little sharp-leaved reds when you're under high CO2, is that right? Or is it a wider leaf
It doesn't get much bigger than that, the leaf, but it goes. Hopefully, it goes a much more intense red. I think these lights are probably going to be okay. We'll do best with CO2. It is a medium category plant, so for those that don't already know, Tropica produce 3 categories of plants in terms of how difficult they are. So you have easy, which is all the green label. They're all colour coded. Easy, medium, and advanced. So easy is green, medium is orange, and advanced is red. So medium, easy, which is things like Amazon swords, Java fern, crypts, most mosses, Anubias, Bucophilandra. All these are easy. Don't necessarily need CO2 injection. Don't need a lot of light. Probably will grow in like regular gravel or sand even. Don't need a lot of liquid fertilizers. So ideal for like most beginner, systems, nano kits, that kind of thing. And then moving on to medium category, this is like the thing we've got here, Altananthera. In fact, the mini hairgrass here, that's also medium category. That will definitely benefit from CO2 injection. Could potentially get away with not CO2 injection, but you probably need more light, which you run into your own issues then when you use lots of light with no CO2. It's another story. And then with advanced category, we're not going to use. I don't think we're using any advanced category today, but advanced category, you need lots of light, lots of CO2, lots of liquid fertilizer, soil substrate. These are going to be quite challenging, relatively challenging plants. Okay, let's do a bit more. What else have we got here? Some more Altananthera here.
You find with the red plants it needs any more benefits or nutrients to them?
Yeah, most red plants are red because they don't have a lot of chlorophyll in their leaves. So the chlorophyll is what makes them green. And the chlorophyll is what's responsible for basically making them grow, converting light and CO2 into oxygen. So it's photosynthesized. So if you have a plant with not much red or not much green, it's going to be quite inefficient at using the light. So it needs more light, basically. Does that make sense? So the redder the plant, or the less green the plant, the less efficient it is. So the more light it generally needs. So if you look at something like Anubias, which is a very dark green leaf, really efficient at using light because it's got loads of chlorophyll. So actually it will grow really well in the shade. And that's something, it's a kind of rule of thumb you can use with plant colours. Does that make sense?
Is there a conflict out there? Because I read that some reds are brought out by very lean dosing, or is that just a particular...
it's more of a stress response. So it's quite an advanced topic now. But yes, if you're running a high energy system with appropriate nutrients in the substrate, so they can still grow, but you limit through their leaves, i.e. nitrogen, which is a very important nutrient, you can response in the plant and it will make it more red, basically. Now, I don't know, different species respond differently. There's some plants that will kind of produce their own suntan kind of thing, and that's why they go more red. Like another, again, like a stress response, I guess. But basically speaking, if you the more red you want, the more light you have. Light is the driving factor behind everything. And then if you want to get really fancy, you can start, limiting nitrogen and lean dosing and things like that. But that's really for more advanced aquascapers. I mean, I don't do lean dosing or I don't even use red plants hardly.
So do you have a go-to like for beginners? Because I've been looking at lights, they can go up into the thousands.
So sorry, repeat the question.
The lighting. Do you have a go-to? Do you recommend a decent light at a good price?
It depends on. I mean, it's like, what's your budget? What size tank have you got? What's your end goal? There's no like. I can't say X. This is going to be the best for you because I don't know what your demands are. I can't answer any more than that. I'm afraid. Sorry. Yeah.
What's your view on T5 still being used then as opposed to LEDs?
In terms of growing plants, they're great, and in terms of colour, they're really good. But in terms of efficiency, not so good. So
I've got T5 still. So.
Yeah, I mean they're really good, and they grow plants really well, and they have a very linear kind of uniform light, you know, whereas LEDs are normally spotlight effect. So that can be an advantage, especially for photography. Okay, what have we got here? This is, oh yes, now we're talking. My favourite crypt of all time, Cryptocorae Wenditii green. So this will grow a little bit shorter than the Undulatus red, but it has really fascinating leaf colours. So in good lighting, normally the leaves are red, but it will actually kind of get these reddish veins in it, which can look really beautiful. So I think we can actually mix this up with the Undulatus.
I've heard that can also be grown as an epiphyte, is that right? Or is that?
Yeah, this is really interesting. So for those that don't know, epiphyte means it can grow attached to something else. So actually you can graft, you know, attach most aquarium plants to a material. If you think about it, you know, when you're growing a plant hydroponically, that's what's happening. It's growing with its roots kind of dangling in water. So you can grow crypts attached to wooden rocks, believe it or not. It will prefer to be buried in a soil because it does like to get a lot of its nutrients from the roots. What I'm doing here is kind of deliberately mixing up the crypts. So this is the Undulatus red mixed in with the Wenditii green. And that's just going to create a more of a naturalistic vibe. If you had like almost like monoculture, you know, like a neat row of red and a neat row of pure green, it would look quite blocky. So by kind of deliberately mixing up the textures, we can create this.
Similar to Dutch style.
Yeah, Dutch. That would be Dutch style if you went deliberately for really neat blocks. Yeah.
You have no hardscape.
But this is definitely a heavily planted. This is definitely a planted tank. You know, this is got some strong hardscape, but the plants are definitely going to be the dominant feature here. Who's going to be maintaining this? Do we know? Is there any staff here right now watching? You'd expect the staff to be watching the workshop, wouldn't you?
So
they know what they're doing.
The 1, 2, 3, the 1, 2 grow pots. How long can, so if I was to pick up a load today, and I'm setting up my tank, how long can they be stored?
Good couple of weeks or so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Put them on a windowsill. Make sure they get direct sunlight because they can fry.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I was wondering because I want to pick up quite a few.
Yeah.
I don't know when I can get the tank set up.
Where do you live?
Just Shrewsbury.
Oh, okay.
I don't have a big tropical place. Pets at home is probably the best place.
Yeah, and they don't do the big.
No, they don't do. Yeah.
Do you eliminate crypt light?
Never really the best.
You can never guarantee getting crypt out, but yeah, once you grow, it's less likely because they've adapted to growing that. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
I've seen Yuri's cut all the leaves off those. Is that?
Yeah.
Is there any benefit to that, or?
Yeah. So that's a good top tip. Yeah. So my German fellow aquascaper friend Yuri's, when we're planting crypts, it's more. In fact, we have that big mother plant crypt in here. So this is a mother plant from Tropica. Now, what can happen is when you plant a brand new plant, especially crypt species, this belongs to a family called Cryptocorae. They're quite susceptible to their leaves kind of melting. So when the plant adapts to its new environment, it can really struggle, and it sheds its leaves basically to try and create new ones which are readily adapted. So to bypass that process, what Yuri's does and some other professional aquascapers is literally just cut. Is literally cut all the leaves off like this, and you've got all the healthy rootstock in there, which will generate the new leaf growth. It just looks terrible. You just got this like spiky mess in your tank. So I like to keep the leaves on there personally, and hopefully the plant will adapt slowly. If you do see the leaves melting, you can just get rid of them, cut them off, or just pull them off, and then you'll get new leaf growth hopefully.
George, with Tropica's range of limited edition plants, like that Vietnam one that you played with last time,
Yeah.
do they have like a full thing of how it's going to look at the end? Or?
Yeah, if you go on the Tropica Aquarium Plants YouTube channel, which I create a lot of videos for. There's a lot of plant profile videos where you can see exactly how it looks in the pot and then how it looks actually grown in the aquascape, because they do vary considerably. And that's a big struggle actually for the hobby, because unless the shop has a really nice display aquarium, it's really hard for the customer to see the potential of these beautiful aquarium plants. So I think it's really great that shops like this one, you know, are putting on events like this to really educate folk like you guys, and so you can hopefully experience the full joys of aquascaping. Speaking of which, we're talking about mixing textures, weren't we? My mate James there has kindly prepared some Monte Carlo, and what we do with that, we pop that in between the hairgrass, and they actually grow at a fairly similar rate. So what's going to happen is they'll gradually mesh in together and create a really natural texture. Otherwise, we're just going to have, like I say, it's monoculture of hairgrass running across the front. It's going to look quite sterile, you know, quite unnatural. If you look at that scape there, that's probably the best scape in the store. Just behind you there. You don't really see any kind of, you know, monotone textures or colours. It's all naturalistic, isn't it? If you compared that to a Dutch style aquascape, which is very formal, like a formal garden, you know, everything like got its like unique area. There's no natural blends of anything. It's all quite kind of cold, if you like. So where were we on my life story? We got up to, I'm just practicing for Orlando, I hope you don't mind.
You just argued your way into a magazine.
Oh yeah, yeah, so I started writing for PFK, and then 2007 I co-founded the UK Aquatic Plant Society. Shameless plug, ukaps.org/forum. Probably one of the world's most renowned, you know, high quality resources of plant and aquarium information, all free. Loads of cool people on there, loads of experts happy to share knowledge with you. So do consider joining if you're not already a member.
What's it called?
United Kingdom Aquatic Plant Society, ukaps.org. So that's still going, and that was great. So we hosted events, we did some shows, we did aquascaping demos, and showcased the hobby as best we could, basically, around the UK and Europe, in fact. We did some European stuff as well. Meanwhile, I'm still kind of in the Air Force, just side hustling, doing a bit of work for practical fish keeping. Started doing a few kind of public speaking bits and bobs. Started to realise that aquascaping was like really my calling, you know, like this is why I'm here. I'm not here to blow people up or kill people or you know, defend the country against terrorists anymore. I'm here to bring joy into people's lives through aquascaping. You know, that's really how my mindset was shifting. And then that was really cemented in 2012 when I was on my second deployment to Afghanistan, so Helmand province. I volunteered, stupid idea, to go on a bomb disposal tour because I just like to, you know, threaten my life.
Live on the edge.
Yeah, so I've always been a bit of an adrenaline junkie. Yeah, ironically now I'm doing like the opposite. But yeah, I volunteered for that. A long story, I got blown up in a roadside bomb. And then I realised, yeah, I definitely want to do aquascaping for a job. Simultaneously, my ex-wife filed for divorce, and my life kind of quite quickly, you know, went pretty dark for a while. But I still had aquascaping, you know, and you know, no matter how how dark things got, and they got pretty dark, and I went into some pretty bad places. If you want to know more about that kind of stuff, mental health stuff, there is a podcast called. It's actually on my podcast. I re-released it. So if you go to the George Farmer podcast, there's the last episode is it's all about mental health and how aquascaping has kind of given me more purpose and things like this. So it's quite an interesting listen if you're interested in that.
That's why I started it 2 years ago, because I suffer from mental health.
Yeah,
It's quite calming.
it is. It's really good.
About it.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful hobby. So yeah, that was a catalyst really, and I decided, yeah, I'm gonna take up aquascaping full time. Sort of built up a reputation already in the industry, and then work for Tropical Marine Centre, which are actually kind of known for being a marine fish wholesaler, but they actually had a freshwater brand called Aquascaping, which was what I was employed to manage. I was their brand manager for a while, and that was really cool. That was a good experience. Learned about the trade a bit. Did some cool travelling, did some shows, did some aquascaping, worked on a few brand ideas, but it wasn't for me really. It was a lot of travelling. It was in London, and I lived in Hitchin. It was like sort of 3 or 4 hours in the car every day. I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning and getting home at 7, and there was just no life. And luckily I met my current wife, and she was in a position to kind of support me through this transition, and I just went full-time self-employed. So I quit TMC, did some more work with PFK, and gradually built up my YouTube profile to the point where I did a collaboration with King of DIY, in fact, Joey Mullen. He came over to the UK, and that was really interesting for me because we're very different people and we have very different styles of content. I don't know if anyone knows King of DIY, the YouTuber. But I actually really respect him as an entrepreneur and as a business person. And I realised, I can make a really good go of YouTube. I can use a camera, I can talk in front of a camera. I know about aquariums, so that was that. And then that kind of grew to the point where I could approach, people like Awase, Tropica, Fritz, and do brand deals. And yeah, fast forward to kind of a couple of years ago, I wrote my first book. And now I'm here rambling about my life story to you guys. So it's all good. And it's all come from a simple passion for nature and connecting with nature. And I think that's for me, that's the fundamental reason why I love aquascaping so much. Is because it does allow you to return to source. I don't know if anyone's spiritual out there. I'm not going to go all on you or anything, but there's something about when you're working with natural materials or animals or plants, even rocks and wood, soils, all these things, they're helping, I think personally, they're helping you to return to this sort of natural state where we're so far removed from in modern times. We're all addicted to our phones. We're all operating on a fight or flight mode. Whenever we see anything on the news that infuriates us, or we see something on social media, we have this kind of diversive mindset. You're either with us or against us, or you're us or them. It's kind of everything's like politicised. But when aquascaping, it's just nothing like that. Everyone loves aquascaping, I think.
My missus doesn't.
Oh. I think everyone can appreciate a good aquascape. I don't think anyone that wouldn't. You put a nice aquascape in front of any human being, and I think they would appreciate it. They might not appreciate the amount of time and money that goes into it, and the distract might give some people. But there's something really special about aquascaping for me personally, and I really find the joy in sharing that. I actually find more joy now kind of sharing it and creating content around it than I do consuming it. I do love sitting in front of my own aquariums at home, but there's always this like, oh, that doesn't look good, I need to do that next. Wonder what this next scape's going to be. Maybe I should upgrade this. But there's something, there's a lesson there that you should sometimes slow things right down and take time to enjoy your aquascape and not just think about the next thing or worry about that bit of algae or worry about anything. Just enjoy the aquascape for what it is and let it be, because that's where the magic happens. Because actually, when you think about it, you're only ever really present here and now. If you're thinking about the past, you know, you're kind of worried about the past and regrets, or you're anxious about the future, there's no point in doing that. All that really matters, when here and now, and one of the best ways to connect with here and now is through aquascaping.
How many tanks do you have at home?
4 at the moment. Yeah, I've got a YSA Highline 400. That was home to discus. It's going through a transition at the moment. That's going to be a big reveal. It's a bit of a secret, actually. Then I have a Highline 300 room divider. Beautiful tank, oxy white glass. That is home to my Malawi cichlids. And then I have a Scape 60, which is just a kind of classic nature aquarium, used to grow plants and stuff for content. And then I have a Tropica Aquacube, which, for those that don't know, is an 8-inch cube. It's 20 centimetres. It's actually solid crystal, Czechoslovakian Republic crystal. And it was given to me by Holger Windelov, who was the founder of Tropica Aquarium Plants. And it was a little nano aquarium system that they released, I think, in 2004. It didn't do very well, so they discontinued it, I think, in 2006. But Holger, he was the of Tropica in 1970, so 52 years ago. This guy, he's still around. I've met him last week in Denmark. Yeah, he gave me this tank fully boxed, and he wrote on it and everything, and I actually cried because he was like a legend. No, he was.
It's a type of man who walked in with a cigar.
Yeah, he did. We had a cigar together during the live stream last week. Yeah, for those that might have seen that. So yeah, absolute legend. Gave me this little tank, and that's my 4th tank. Going back to the original point of how many tanks I've got. I find I could have more, but for me, it's a question of energy. You know, how much energy do I have spare to put into my own tanks versus is the energy best spent on doing other people's tanks, or you know, it's always kind of trying to balance the energy levels. So I'm a big fan of quality over quantity. I'd rather have fewer beautiful aquariums and loads of less beautiful aquariums.
So what do you do as a hobby to get away? Because obviously, if you're living and breathing aquariums constantly,
yes,
I'd be worried about burning out.
Yeah.
So what else do you do to get away from it?
Well, actually, it's funny. My hobby is like mindfulness and wellness and meditation and nutrition and exercise and looking after myself.
Yeah.
So it's good because aquascaping is kind of part of that as well. Because when I do aquascaping for me, so the odd occasion, I have got an aquarium at home that it's got a new scape in it no one's seen, no one's ever seen, apart from people that have been in my home. That's for me. So I still have an element of the hobby for myself.
Yeah.
But I'm a big fan of looking after myself mentally and physically as well as I can. That's how I can sustain energy and talk to you guys all day and not crash. Yeah.
That'd be a big thing for me.
Yeah. But it's like anything in life, isn't it? The more you do something, the better and the easier it becomes. Yeah. The better you become. My first workshops, I was just a stuttering mess. And you only get better by putting yourself out there, failing and learning from your mistakes and getting better. There's people that never put themselves out there, they don't make mistakes and they never learn and they never improve. So the only way you can improve in life is to actually get yourself out there and make those mistakes and don't be afraid of them, because they've got so much to learn from them.
Could I ask you something? What do you use at home to keep your glass clean and dry?
I don't think it's done here. It's called Fritz Aquatics Glass and Acrylic Cleaner. It's great. It's non-toxic. I sound like a salesman now, don't I? I am effectively a salesman. It's basically a spray, a window cleaner, but it's non-toxic, and it actually puts like a micro layer on the glass, so it's easier to polish.
Inside?
Nothing. Just glass, just water.
Just water, nothing.
Yeah. If you talking about sterilising a new tank from scratch, or
no. I've got a few scratches on mine.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Using the magnet.
Yeah, I use a magnet. Just be careful of the sands. Yeah. Or I'll scrape. I've got one here. Leave left it in the car, I think. Algae scrapers are quite good. I'll use a Denolay Cleanator as well, which is a sponge thing with like a wire wool on the back. Right. But this is like a soft steel wire wool, so it doesn't actually scratch the glass, but it removes algae really, really easily. It's really good.
I mean, I
Actually.
don't do it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Right, I'm really rambling here. I've been planting for an hour or so. Right, what have we got next? Where's that monster crypt? There it is. Let's talk about this bad boy. So this is an XL pot. These Tropica do XL pots as well. Still grown hydroponically. Ooh. There we go. Look at that. So these have been growing longer in the greenhouse, of course.
That is a beast.
Yeah. Absolute specimen.
Going out in 60.
Yeah. So you can be quite brutal with the rootstock here. You can actually tear it. That's going to generate new root growth.
Squares and just rolled it down.
Yeah, you can just be. One left and one right, eh?
How much do they retail?
£700.
You just done that.
I'll do you one for 350.
20 or 20, 30
I
quid.
think about, I don't know, 20 quid for the XL?
18.
18 quid. There you go.
Bargain.
Yeah, but it's good. A good value, I think.
There goes £2.50.
Yeah.
How long would it take that plant to get to that sort of size?
6 months. Yeah, long. That's why they're so expensive, because it's obviously real estate in the greenhouse. But you could grow them, yeah, like you could grow them this size yourself from a normal size pot, but it's going to take you a good few months.
George, do you expect them to melt, those cryptos?
No. No, if they do melt, it's your fault. That's what I'm saying.
You were alright when I left.
Oh yeah, yeah, right, nice. Please don't come and revisit our shop yet. I get that all the time. I'm coming to see. I'm in the area. Can I see the scape that I did for you 3 months ago? No. Oh, you haven't looked after it then. Yeah. Very symmetrical at the moment. We're not normally a big fan of symmetry in aquascaping, but we're going to do something later to offset it, so don't worry. Okay, conscious that we've not got anything around here. We are going to probably have some epiphytes around here. Can I plant into that? That might be nice, something a bit different. Have we got any lilies?
Yes. Taiwan ones. I've got the Taiwan one in Monty Groves.
Yeah, can we have some of them?
Yeah. How many pots?
One. Oh, in fact, I've got it here already. Yeah, I've got it already here. Don't worry, mate. Cheers. So this is an interesting, and do you know what? I'm going to make a confession here. I've never ever used this in Aquascape myself.
What, lily?
No, Nymphoides hydrophila Taiwan. It's not the regular tropical lily, but it looks quite similar. It has like these long stems and these elaborate floppy leaves kind of at the end. So, but they don't kind of rest on the surface like a lily.
They stay submerged.
Yeah. But it's going to be like a really interesting like focal point around here, rather than like I've normally put a massive Java fern there, which you know is a bit predictable.
Yeah.
Fair. I'm going to use this instead.
So the Nymphea are the proper lilies, aren't they? Are they all,
Yes.
and then that's Nymphoides. Then.
Yeah, Nymphea is the regular one. How are we doing for battery on this? Is it still working? Yeah, that's good. I'll put the battery pack on it.
So obviously for a shallow tank, your plant choice would be completely different. You try and keep planted plants in there.
Yeah, you want to keep it, unless you want to grow stuff out the top, which is always an option. Yeah, you can. Some plants will grow beautifully out of. The really interesting thing about aquatic plants, 95% of them in nature grow out of water most of the time. It should be working now, hopefully. We'll soon find out when the battery dies, won't we? Right, preparing this one. You can you see that mat of roots there? Just to show you how many plants you get in these pots. You will get some kind of, loss if you like, but there's so many there, you don't need to worry. Should be quite an interesting layout actually. It's the cool thing about doing workshops, you can play around with different ideas and see how they go.
What sort of height will that reach then in 5 days?
And yeah, you can keep.
Good 8-10 inch sort of thing.
Yeah, and you can just trim it, and you can keep it. You like bonsai. You can keep trimming it and just shape it how you want.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't actually know that for a fact, but it sounds feasible.
Say it, yeah. Say with confidence.
Exactly.
Who was your
I bet everyone believed me, didn't they?
Almost.
I was there.
No, I think you can. It's like most plants, you can do that.
Who was your favourite workshop when you first started up?
My favourite workshop. I
Did
did
you have workshops?
Yeah. I've been doing workshops for a long time. I think I did my first one in 2008, so it was like 14 years. Yeah, you think I'd know what I was doing by now.
Did you go see Takeshi Amano?
I've never actually met him. It was one of my biggest regrets. Yeah, absolute legend.
So when it comes to starting up a tank, obviously the amount of plants you've got, there's got to be a fair bit of money there. Would you recommend saving money and plant all at once, or could you go as?
I would recommend planting as heavy as you can at once.
Yeah.
So it's actually a bit of a common mistake to think, oh, I'll just buy one plant and then let it and propagate it and try to. You could potentially do that, but the room for error is so big. I think I talked about this at the beginning of the workshop. It's really important to plant really heavily from the outset, because otherwise you just get algae problems. Yeah. So yeah, definitely save up if you can. We're using, I'm not going to lie, we're using a lot of plants. There's a lot of money's worth going in here. It's not a cheap hobby. Like I say, there's going to be 50, 100 pots in here altogether by the time we're finished. And it is an investment, but the rewards you get are just so beautiful, and you'll get, it's just all about that initial investment in time, money, and energy. If you can get it right to the right start, the right direction, then you're going to be so much more likely to succeed in the longer term. If you scrimp and save at the beginning and think, oh, I won't use so many plants, or I'll just get this cheaper lighting, or I won't bother with CO2 injection, even though I can afford it, these are decisions that are going to have big impacts, further down the line on your aquascaping. So it is a real, you get out what you put in. Yeah, basically.
Did you have a lot of problems then in your, was it a 2 or 3 pot irigumi that you did ages ago? Did you have a lot of problems with that tank then?
No. The reason that, because I was doing like 80% daily water changes.
Oh, okay. So
and if you want to succeed with things, that's the thing you have to do. You have to put the work in. The technique of this, of like planting heavily, all the stuff I've been talking about, this is like, it's kind of my cut and paste method of success, if you like. It's been proven and proven over again. The one pot irigumi and stuff like that, they're more just a bit of fun, but also to stretch myself to see what I can get away with. Yeah.
You're saying about creating good habitats for the fish.
Yeah.
When it comes to shrimp, obviously Amano great for that, but then any other shrimp like cherries on that have different habitats they like more?
Yeah, I mean, if you're keeping any living entity, you should do your research, yeah, and keep the rule of thumb. Figure out, if you're a beginner especially, figure out what water is you've got, and then keep everything according to that. Don't try to change the water to suit what you think you might want to keep. So if you're a beginner, figure out what water you've got, figure out what you can keep in that water, and do that. That's the easiest thing. With shrimp, the basic rule of thumb: Neocaridina shrimp, your cherry shrimp, prefer harder water, and your bee shrimp, your Caridina species, generally prefer softer water. Simple as that.
What's your view on using RO then?
Personally, I don't use it. I think it's a bit of a waste of water, but I understand that people want to get the best out of their plants, out of their fish, have complete control over the water chemistry. Then RO is one of the best ways to do that. This is Helanthium tenellum green, another carpeting plant, so it grows in a similar fashion to the mini hairgrass, but it's a lot taller and it has kind of more like reedy-like leaves. It'll grow to sort of this sort of tall, but it's an absolute brute at carpeting. I'm only going to use one pot, and I'm just going to put in the odd sprig in front of the Altananthera, and that's just going to soften the transition. again from the hairgrass and the Monte Carlo. I think so, yeah. I think the proliferation of more aquascaping specialist stores, you know, we've got, I like to call them the big four, if you like. You've got Aquarium Gardens, Riverwoods, Aquatics, Horizon, and Scape Nature. They're all aquascaping focused, absolutely. I mean, none of them. No, sorry. Aquarium Gardens don't even stock fish for sale. They're purely aquascaping. And yeah, I think there's a lot more activity on social media with aquascaping now. You know, it's obviously a very visually friendly hobby, so Instagram, it's taken off there. There's a big Instagram community. And the knowledge and the accessibility, you know, knowledge is easily accessible with forums and Facebook groups and books and stuff, YouTube channels, and the equipment becoming more accessible, you know, and easier to get hold of, potentially cheaper. Yeah, so absolutely, I think it is growing, which is, I think on the whole is a good thing. Yeah.
Can I just interrupt? People want decent coffees. Can I take it? It's going to be a hell of an order. But if we can have hands up for white, we'll do sugars after.
White tea.
White tea.
Not too red.
Not too much.
Understood 3 times.
Like you feel
The
this
coats
tea.
are inside.
And white coffees. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Nice coffee.
Quite happy with the big one. How many steps would you say you do a year?
Good question.
You do.
Between 50 and 100, probably. One a week,
Oh, yeah, that's
1 or 2 a week average.
Is that like different store each week?
A combination of my own stuff, stores, private clients.
Oh, you do a
Yeah.
bit of private client work.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't advertise it, but if people have got the motivation and
So
the
you don't need to do.
initiative to reach out and they can afford me, then yeah, I'll do private clients.
If they can afford me. If you're going to ask, you can't afford me.
Yeah, that's the thing. No, I'm not expensive at all actually, compared
So you're
to
cheap,
I know some people, some other scapers who charge a lot more.
I'm just getting in touch with you through Instagram.
Yeah, I've got a website. You can contact me on there. Yeah. I'm putting this in now just because it's just. I keep seeing it there.
It'd be rude not to.
And it's doing my head in, so I'm going to pop it.
What about, George, what about shrimps jumping out of the tank? Fish.
Yeah, I mean, you do need to stock appropriately. Shrimp shouldn't, might tend to climb out sometimes. But yeah, just be careful what fish you stock. But if the system is comfortable, then they shouldn't want to jump anyway. But you know, I've been saying.
You're going to put any moss on those branches?
Probably not today.
No, well,
I don't think
sometimes
it needs
people
it.
just cover it in moss, and then it's
Yeah.
like, what's the point of having?
Yeah.
You know?
You lose the hardscape.
When it comes to the aquapine, if you can get away with not using any glue or anything, do you tend to?
Yeah, I just wedge it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
George, that plant you just put in there, what was the name of that one again?
That's what?
Yeah.
That's my sorry, that's Microsorum Therapist, Java pen.
Yeah. Just one of the narrow leaf forms.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I'm just conscious of this gap here. I'm wondering what we should put there.
Where we're looking?
Yeah, but it's gonna. I'm thinking of Amazon swords at the back.
You need something that's actually a bit more open. Makes a bit dramatic.
Got some star
Like creeping down, maybe. Add a bit of.
Too low though. What's the name of Monte Carlo? The plant?
Micranthum and Tweedy Eye. I think it was discovered in Monte Carlo. I'm going to go.
Paraguay.
I don't know. I wonder if we just carry on the Altananthera around. There's something a bit
Green or red?
like a path going all the way. Like this into the back. Crazy.
Yeah.
Stepping out our comfort zone today.
Sometimes you're going to push the limits.
Trouble is, if I do that and then all the way to the back, and then if I put Amazon swords, they're going to shadow, so that's not going to work.
What about just another jar fence? Just have that
Another giant fence going to be far too symmetrical. So this is what's causing like it not to be too symmetrical. This is just offset, isn't it, by about a third. But maybe a rock, yeah, maybe a nice rock kind of leaning up here, and then some epiphytes sort of attached.
Yeah. Some piece of philandra or something.
Where's my mate here?
Do you try and match the rock with the wood? So if you go for like a grey mountain with a dark wood?
Yeah, it just needs to look natural and complement.
You don't want
Bit of
dark
mini
and
landscape.
dark.
Well,
That's all right.
Well, Bucephalandra or Bucephalandra is going to be quite nice. Some of them have got a bit more height, haven't they? But
Quite maybe.
there you go. It's going to be easy if I just come and look, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, I'll be back in 2 minutes, excuse me.
why?
Right.
Stretching down.
There's a lot of money in there.
I've gone ready. I don't think
I'm hoping that they'll let me do some sort of deal. So I reckon I'll have probably about 10 pots of that.
So you're
Oh yes, tea.
You want some sugar?
Sorry, I would get up.
No, it's okay.
Right, I didn't know that was not.
Right, got some dragonstone. Quite popular. Yeah. And that's going to help weigh the wood down as well.
Sugars in a
Nice balance. Yeah, I think it's a match.
Do you want 2 sugars? Thank you very much.
Okay, that's good.
Pop this one here.
Any other teas, guys? We all out with tea.
And then we don't like to use our even numbers, so third stone. Complement this one here in front of this crypt.
They don't even numbers.
Yeah, going home is bad, isn't it? This is a good example. So if I was at home and I had all the time in the world, I would actually spend a lot more time on the hardscaping process. That's actually arguably the most important part. It sets the tone for the rest of the aquascape. So we've adapted the hardscape, as you can see there, with some dragonstone, 3 pieces. The master stone, the biggest stone here, very dominant, as you can see. Positioned deliberately, rule of thirds to the right, if that was directly central, it'd look really odd. So we go off to the right a touch. You can see these natural lines in the rock here. It's called dragonstone because these represent dragon scales, but it has a natural line here. We call that strata, and that's, you know, it's flowing this cohesive direction here. And then we have this other stone here. I don't know if you guys can see. Nice t-shirt, by the way. You have the natural strata running this way. So the two stones, the natural lines are converging to the central point here. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah. It's my way of composing in an aquascape. It's a very recognisable way, and if you analyse my scapes, they have a very distinct style, and I've only just realised that's why, because I've really analysed them recently. So that's why my aquascapes look similar, because I use the same compositional technique, basically. Yeah, exactly. So we are kind of left wanting a little bit of space around here, but that's okay. We're going to put some epiphytes on around there a bit later. I'm quite conscious we need to consider background. Now, I was thinking that Amazon swords would change. I think they're underrepresented in the hobby a bit. Do we have a vote? Who wants Amazon swords in the background?
Some.
Okay, for those that don't want Amazon swords, let me know what you want. I thought I'd shut you up. HRA. I think there's enough trimming going on in here.
When you say that, would you tend to do just Amazons in the back, or would you kind of have
I think a curtain of Amazons would look nice.
complete curtain?
It gives a height to the tank as well.
Yeah.
What's that way if you get one?
It's going to look lush and different, you know. Amazon swords and this type of material very rarely used.
Everything else is quite a low fat.
So I'd be quite tempted to have like a central block of Amazons. Yeah. I certainly will. Cheers. Yeah. Cheers.
Okay, Amazon swords, classic, easy, but actually shows up nutrient deficiencies quite quickly. So a lot of beginners can struggle with them, but generally relatively easy, really easy to prepare. Just take out your label, take your pot away, remove your 2 halves of rock wool, like so, and then
So when it comes down to trimming the Amazon swords,
yeah.
what's the easiest way to do it? I've heard it's like go down to the root.
Yeah, that's what I do. I just follow the leaf all the way to the rootstock and pull it away. To plant, you don't even need tweezers. You can just be quite brutal, pop it into your fingers. Yeah.
One of the things with them, George, is Amazon swords.
Yeah.
The Amano shrimps always eat to death.
They do. They love them, don't they? Little bastards. Excuse my language. Yeah, Amano shrimp, right? They're brilliant, but they'll eat anything.
I know.
They eat other fish. So, yeah, you need to keep them, like, ironically, you need to keep them well fed, otherwise they start to eat the plants. So if you're not getting any natural background levels of algae anyway, they're just going to rely on your plants for vegetable. Yeah.
So that's not just a normal straightforward. You've got a bit of a mixture of Amazons, have you?
I don't actually know. That's a really good question.
They look like quite a long stem.
No, they're all very high. Regular Amazon swords.
Okay.
Mine
Yeah.
And they're always carrying out.
You're just getting rocks on.
Okay.
A live studio.
YouTube might monetize it.
OnlyFans comes to the mainstream.
I've never tried really nice.
I'm definitely doing OnlyFans, so that's great, isn't it?
Get that name.
Yeah.
Any more bickies?
Yeah, more bits.
He's just attacking my boob, it's fine.
Magic.
Have you got any of the ones they polo shirts spare? You got any in the car? You got any in the car? The medium.
Ah!
Get one today and I'll wear one for a photo. Only thing. Be my thumbnail.
That's now going.
Welcome to Looking, sponsored by Algae.
That's also going. Are you going to remove yourself?
For those that don't know, who's on Instagram by the way? Who's got an Instagram account? Okay. If you want a selfie with me, I'm not doing this because I'm like self-centered or anything. If you want a selfie with me and you want to grow your account, then let's do a selfie later and I'll share it. But also, if you're on Instagram, do me a favour. If you don't already follow Tropica Aquarium Plants, follow them. And then if you are genuinely interested, there is a giveaway. We're doing a contest, 100k giveaway. So if you type in, basically to enter, well, let's start off with the prize. The prize is 2 days in Denmark with me, Tropica. You have a complete tour of the facilities, you get involved with Tropica Live. You don't have to be on Tropica Live, but you see what happens behind the scenes. We get to scape together. Yeah, it's cool. You just get to hang out for a couple of days, have really good fun scaping and stuff. In Denmark, full expenses, flights, accommodation, everything paid for you. All you need to do to enter is post a photo on Instagram, use the hashtag Tropica100k, and then post a photo of anything to do with aquascaping, and then tell a story why you aquascape. So I told my story, why I like aquascaping earlier. Maybe you've got a story. If you actually search, if you're on Instagram, you know how it works. If you search for the hashtag Tropica100k, you'll get everyone else that's entered, and you'll get an idea of people's stories, the quality of the content, the kind. It's just interesting anyway if you are interested in this sort of thing. So yeah, there's an opportunity there for someone if they like me enough to want to hang out for 2 days. If you don't like me, then you probably won't want to enter.
On some of your big attachments, you have 2 filters.
Yeah.
The second one, I know you said
All right, thanks.
sludge that, but also with Substrate, does it actually help cleaning, or is it like a certain size someone needs to consider doing that for?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so in terms of like adding filters and circulation to the aquarium, in a planted aquarium with using CO2 injection and high lighting, basically the more filtration and the more circulation you have, the better, especially with CO2 injection. So you want to be getting that CO2 distributed around the aquarium as well as possible. And the best way to do that is with a good filter. So for instance, in my High Line 400, I have 2 Biomaster 850s. You could get away with 1, but that extra circulation is really useful. And of course, the more filters you have, the cleaner, mechanically cleaner the water's going to be, and the more biological capacity it has to deal with any waste as well. So it is really a case of more is better with regards to filtration. And the great thing about the Biomasters, like I said at the beginning of the workshop, you know, that quick release pre-filter really encourages you to clean the filter, which is a good thing. You don't want it too clean biologically because a lot of the bacteria can, you know, it is useful. But you want to keep it clean mechanically as possible. So that pre-filter sponge, you can clean it daily if you wanted to, and it only takes a few minutes. But if you keep that super clean, you maintain good flow rates through the aquarium. Good flow rates mean good circulation. Good circulation means minimum dead spots. Good circulation means good CO2 distribution, and that means good plant growth. Good plant growth means little algae issues.
What's your view on spray bars? Because there's a lot of people on UK APS talk about spray bars.
I'm not a big fan. I hate. In fact, I really don't like them.
Yeah, I just think they look aesthetic, or I
think they look horrible. Oh yeah, it's aesthetic, and I am an aesthetic guy. So even if they were like marginally better function, I'd still go for lily pipe just because it looks much better, and I'd deal with that little bit of less efficiency.
What's your go-to media in it?
This is a really good question. This is really interesting because a lot of people will swap out the Biomaster media for Seachem Matrix.
Yeah.
and I don't see the need to. You know, I've kept breeding discus with the regular filter media that comes supplied with the Oase. So that's just a mixture of sponges and the plastic biomedia.
Yeah, so I got another one of these at home ready. So
Yeah, I just keep it as it is. I would. Yeah, I'll tell you a product. I know this is a bit of a promo for Fritz Aquatics, but they do these sachets of a mixture of carbon, phosphate remover, and something else, a bit like Purigen. And it's all it's like 3 things in one sachet. You put that in your filter, and I'll tell you what, my water has never been so clean. It was just absolutely. You didn't realise water could be that clean. It was just like looking into an empty aquarium. It's just insane. That was Fritz Aquatics. It's like I can't remember what it's called, Fuzz Out or No Algae, or is that marketed as an anti-algae product because it reduces phosphate, which works in a non-planted tank. But you have to be careful with using phosphate removal media in a heavy planted tank. But especially in new tanks, a lot of evidence that suggests if you limit phosphate, it can help limit algae. Some people would argue me on that one. I don't care really.
Fritz are starting to come over a bit more because I've used some of their benefit bacteria, but it's quite hard to get hold of.
Yeah, yeah. There's a few stores that do it. I won't mention them because there's obviously we're in another store, but yeah. Used to, yeah. I don't now. I don't like the tank. I find if I have anything poking out of the surface, collect the scum. Like if I have floating plants or exposed hardscape, I tend to find I don't get any build-up of scum. Yeah.
So I have quite an issue with sort of surface film and start using a skip.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is an issue for a lot of people with planted tanks. It just seems to happen. It doesn't seem to be no rhyme nor reason sometimes.
Is it? Because you read it, some people say, oh, it's no detriment, and other people say, oh yeah, you really need to get rid of that because it stops the gas exchanging.
I don't know. I don't know the answer. In my experience of aquascapes, the healthiest systems don't have surface scum. That's all I say. The surface scum means something isn't quite right. You know, the plants are producing something that's building the scum, or there's an excess of something that's collecting on the surface. Simple as that. You know, and that's a sign that something's not right. It's like, you know, pests, snails, algae, anything that you don't like the look of in your aquarium is a sign that there's something wrong. Because just by, you know, logic, you're not happy with it is wrong. So you have to kind of work back, find out the cause, the source of the cause, and address that. But it's very complex with a planted tank because there's literally millions of processes that are all occurring simultaneously. You could set one. We could have an identical scapoline 100 next to this one, and we could use identical plants, identical soil, seemingly identical everything, and you can almost guarantee that they'd grow differently. You'd have different issues with different tanks, and it's just one of those things. But you can take confidence and comfort knowing that the more you experience these things, the more you build up your knowledge and experience, of course, the more equipped you are to deal with future issues. So try not to be overwhelmed when you have issues. Try to see them as an opportunity to learn and grow from. The more mistakes you make, the more you learn, ideally, and then hopefully you don't make those mistakes again.
When you're doing this, is your only form of oxygenation the agitation from the return of the main filter?
Yeah.
You don't tend to put anything else
And
in?
the plants.
Yeah.
Plants produce a lot of oxygen.
So, yeah, okay. But yes, in terms of additional stuff though, it's plants and the return pipe.
Yeah, I don't use air stones or surface skimming or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Simple.
So when it comes down to floating plants, are you a big fan of them? Or do they just kind of block the light?
Depends on the system. If I've got an aquarium without much surface movement, then I'd be tempted to use surface plants because they're quite attractive. But if you've got, like, I tend to run quite a lot of surface agitation. Yeah. They're just all going to collect in the corner and look ugly. Yeah. But I do recommend them, especially in new tanks, because they grow so quickly. Help achieve a balance to help avoid algae. Yeah. Right. More Amazon swords.
Yeah. When you have the really heavily planted tanks, obviously in photosynthesis, come night time, they're kind of they're not releasing as much. They're not releasing.
They're taking in oxygen at night. They're respiring. Yeah.
That's yeah. That kind of leading to my question really. Is like, is there an issue at that point?
I've never had an issue with low oxygen at night. Ever.
It's something I've
never had any fish gasping at the surface in the morning. This is normally the first, or lethargy in the fish in the morning is the first sign.
Yeah, yeah.
I never experienced that. I do question. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theory kind of guy, but I question the motivation behind some of these perceived myths, if you like, in the hobby, and I wonder how much of it is, marketing related. I'm just going to say that. We'll close it there.
I've never dug into it, but I've just always known that about in terms of land plants. Yeah, they take the oxygen at night.
Yeah.
I always wonder if there was.
Yes, exactly the same. They're plants. They grow exactly the same. Yeah.
So when we go into dosing ferts, etc.
Yeah.
Do you have a time when you do that, like just before the lights come on, or an hour after?
Yeah, I have a. It's an interesting one actually. I'm becoming really.
I can just do it whenever.
I've become really a big fan of ritual. Like doing a certain thing in a certain way at a certain time. I think is a really good way to establish positive habits in life in general. In fact, morning routine is really important, and part of my morning routine is to spend time with my tanks. And I don't even use auto doses anymore now. In fact, I had a long call with a Waze yesterday about it, and they were talking about auto dosing, and actually I really like that time where it's just me and the tank and I'm dosing it myself. It's just one of the only, apart from feeding the fish and trimming the plants, you don't really get that much opportunity to connect with the aquarium, and just feeding the plants manually, I think that's a nice little touch. So I like to do that in the morning, and I say hello to the fish, say hello to the plants.
So doing all that, is there a good time just before the lights come on that they'll drive down the ferts a lot more?
To be honest with you, it doesn't really matter. I mean, daily dosing in itself is above and beyond what the plants need. You can get away with weekly dosing. So the time of day is going to, you're talking like the difference is going to be.
And their CO2 on like an hour before they.
Yeah, I mean that's useful to do. You want to get that CO2 to a point where it's optimum for when the plants can use it.
What are you talking about typically overdosing? Is that literally just basically going to lead to just having to trim more?
Yeah.
I mean, because like you say, because
they have to trim more than you get algae.
Their use goes up accordingly to what's available. You're saying. Yeah,
they become a point of no. What's the word? You know what I mean? It's not going to get any gains. But it sounds like I'm getting bombarded with loads of questions, which is great. But I think one of the things to understand with the hobby is a lot of the time there is no specific one answer for a specific question. A lot of it is based on experience and understanding yourself. So these workshops are fantastic because you can ask me these questions and I can give you my answers based on my own experiences. But we'll also recommend you go away and then practice yourself as well. That's really important. And that's how I got to be where I am now, is just sheer practice. Doing it over and over and over again. Yeah. And making the same mistakes sometimes and learning from them hopefully, and then eventually you do something pretty cool hopefully. Getting there, isn't it? A few more swords maybe? Do you know what? I'm going to turn this into a jungle tank. Good. This is oops, sorry about that. Using the audience. This is dedicated to my friend Ty Streetman, who is a massive fan of jungle scapes. So we've got a couple of different species here. This is Bacopa calriana. This is actually one of the first aquarium plants to hit the market. Back in, I think, in probably the 1950s, this came out, Bacopa calriana. Classic, easy background stem plant, quite a fast grower. It's a great helping plant for a new tank. We talked about the importance of planting heavily ideally with some fast growers, and this is the perfect example of that.
Quite hungry.
Quite nutrient hungry, but that's a good thing because it means it'll starve the algae.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go. Got oh.
So there's 2 rows here, or just below row.
Yeah, cheers, mate. I might use a rose in there.
Yeah.
So it's a really advanced planting technique I've got now. I'll get it to my finger and thumb, and then I go. Whoosh. You have to make that noise as well, otherwise it doesn't work. Yeah. And that is actually going to create another added texture, kind of around the sword. It's actually going to look really complex and beautiful, I think. Who's going to maintain this tank? Where's Phil?
It's you, apparently.
Is it? Good luck. I hope is he experienced?
Yeah, he is.
He is, that's good.
He's home requirement tonight.
I expect updates on.
Do you follow? I don't even know if Tropical still do it. Their 90-day start.
It's 90-day app.
Do they still do that?
Yeah, it's still going, but it's web-based. We're actually developing a standalone, much better version now.
Yeah.
Hopefully you'll be released at Interzoo. You been there Interzoo? Yeah. Have we been there? Have we met?
A long time.
Have we? When was that?
I'd say.
Was I nice to you? Sometimes I'm not very nice to them.
No. We were. I think we did. I think in your very early days. The scape. Near to the exhibition. I reckon it was. When did you?
How long have you been with the Wazo? Oh, you've been in the industry a while. Oh wow.
We also shared. I lived in the Falklands.
Did you? Were you as an army guy?
No, I was farmed.
Oh, did you?
Let's see if you can remember the names of places.
Yeah, it's this really little sea line island, no? Sea line? Yeah, of course, yeah. There's some place I went to, but you could only get there by helicopter. Yeah. Awesome. Small world. Hello. Do you want to have a little play? Go on now.
You did say about floaters before.
Oh, this is interesting. So we've got some Cryptocarina Wenditii green in 1-2 grow, but we've also got it in the pots.
Instant effect.
So we'll get some height straight away. It's important to keep the plants wet as well. If they dry out too much, they can die. Different species, some species are more prone to drying out than others. Echinodorus, which is the Amazon sword there, that is particularly prone, unfortunately.
They have them on the big constant mist beds or something.
Yeah, basically, that's right, yeah. Yeah, if you go on the Tropical YouTube channel, there are some videos that kind of show you, you know, how they produce and stuff. I was actually there last week, and we did a 7-hour live stream. Yeah, and we did we set up a load of scapes for a trade show, and we covered the whole process on the live stream. It was pretty cool.
Wow. It was a long one.
You want to go?
Very much.
Super fan.
You've got too much time in his hands.
When the owner walked in with a cigar right at the end and a bottle, I think it was a bottle of whiskey or something.
2 bottles of rum.
That was it.
Cuban rum.
Yeah.
Cuban cigars.
He looked like a man that knew he'd made it in life.
Yeah.
I can cope with that. That'd be nice.
Okay, time for some more epiphytes, I think. No, let's go. This is beautiful. Let's go for this one here. Echinodorus rose. This is a good example of how plants can transform. So you can see we've got the long stem, the stalks here, and then the leaf at the end. Well, this will actually go into like a long sword and actually turn a red colour eventually as well. So it'd be quite different. So prepare that one. This is easy. Yeah. Yeah. The only ones that aren't easy are the foreground plants, basically.
The red one.
Yeah, the red one, and then the mini hairgrass and the Monte Carlo. They're all medium, but you could. Sometimes it's worth experimenting with these medium categories. If you don't have CO2, sometimes you can get away with it. So it's up to you if you want to take the risk.
And will them swords come out the tank?
Yeah, ideally. The rose one probably will more.
Yeah.
The blurry eye might just reach the surface. Sometimes they'll send out flower spikes as well.
Excuse me, George, what was the name of that?
Is this one
plant
have
you've got in
CO2?
your hand?
This is Echinodorus
Yeah, it's got
rose.
underneath where-
Yeah.
It's got it underneath where the
Oh, is it?
yeah.
The name of that last one you put in there, George?
That's Echinodorus rose. Rose A.
It was quite tongue twisters.
The scientific names confuse a lot of people, but they're actually really interesting. And they, if you look into it, the names like Echinodorus, it is split into certain syllables, and each kind of part of the word means something different. So the only ones I can think of are really rude. There's some bit like that. But I'm trying to think of something appropriate.
Sausage time. Inappropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all
Oh,
happy.
you are, don't you? So Bucophalandra. So phala is Greek for phallus, which is a sexual. Yeah. So the Bucophalandra refers to the flower spike that looks like a penis, basically.
Is it an heroin?
There you go. Huh?
Is it an heroin?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So there you go.
Is it a what? Heroin.
Yeah.
Every day is
Yeah,
school day, as they
Any
say.
plant that has a kind of like a spade flower with a kind of it's got a little tobler up the middle. Kind of thing. It's peace lilies and stuff. That kind of thing. Little-
Yeah, Nubius. I think we had
They've all
one.
got basic social. That's exactly what that. Flowers with dodges.
Penis though, anyway.
Yeah, can you get this to the Nubius?
Not flower.
I'm just going to mix it up a little bit with this one of my other favourite crypts. It's quite a small one. Cryptocorny Albedo Brown. It will actually grow to sort of 12 centimetres or so, maybe a bit taller, but under good lighting, which I think is what we've got here, it will turn the leaves turn this beautiful reddy, brown, greeny hue to them. So it's a really beautiful plant. We can split that up. You could probably split that up into 10 portions or so, but we haven't got time for that today. So I'll do 3. And then we can mix that up a little bit around here.
How many species do Tropica sell?
146. And about 70 is ones who grow at the moment. Yeah.
Could you just ask you what's that plant that's going over the rock there?
This one? Yeah, this is
The one, that one.
this one. Yeah, that is Microsorum terapus. It's basically Java fern narrow. That's the easiest one. If you just type in Java fern narrow, that would be a good one. So the crucial thing with when you just escaped your new tank is the water changes at the beginning. It's really common to get algae issues. Thank you. So one of the best ways to defend against algae issues is to focus on the really good plant growth, which we talked about, but also combine that with large, frequent water changes. And that just dilutes all of the nasty stuff that triggers algae, basically. So I actually recommend a 50% water change every day for the first week, every other day for the second week, every third day for the third week, and after 4 weeks, you can go to your 50% water change once a week. Now, it does sound like a lot of water, you know, and it is a lot of water, and I know I am mindful of the environmental impact of using loads of water all the time. But, you know, consider your house plants or whatever. One of the most guaranteed sort of ways to avoid these early algae issues is to do these large, frequent water changes.
How much more Nubius?
That's enough.
Is that enough?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, go on then.
Always room for a little Nubius.
So this is a Nubius nana. This is another classic aquarium plant. This is actually the first plant that Tropica put into production in 1970. And it was one of the first that they produced hydroponically, and we've talked about that already. So it's a classic plant. It comes from the Greek, was it Egyptian?
Anubis is Egyptian.
God, Anubis.
Yeah.
Is it Egyptian?
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
it's Egyptian. But
Anubis, which is the god of death. and it's called Anubias because of it thrives in the dark, so dark death. That's why it's called Anubias. This is Anubias nana. Nana means small, like you've heard of nano. So that word, so we're learning today, aren't we? So Anubias nana grows really well in the shade. Doesn't like to be buried in the substrate. So can you see? You can see the roots. Everyone can see the roots. Or attached where the roots come from is called the rhizome. Can you see that fleshy portion there? Now it's really important, and that's exposed to circulating water. That's buried. It becomes starved of oxygen and it dies basically. So we need to make sure that doesn't get buried in the soil. And you can glue it, you can tie it on with string, or if you're lazy like me, you can just wedge it anywhere that will fit. But you can see now we're kind of building up sort of distinct layers in the scape. Foreground, midground, background, and then epiphytes. We have some Bucophilandra here, got some smaller Anubias here. So you can do really cool things like you can see where I don't know if you guys can see there, but where that the wood and the rock are kind of interfaced there, you can just tuck in your Anubias in between, like so, and that just softens that transition. So where you have the wood laying over the rock, it looks a little bit unnatural. You might not see that in nature, but if you had a plant that kind of accidentally kind of attached itself there, you know, hundreds of years ago, whatever, it can look really natural and adds this kind of ancient feel to the aquascape. That's why mosses come in really handy as well, but we're not using mosses today.
Do you ever use moss? Because I don't think I remember seeing any of your scapes.
Not really. I have done. It's just a pain in the arse to maintain.
I know. I'm the same thing.
I'm a very much a low maintenance scape guy. Yeah.
For what reason? Why is it a pain in the ass?
Just it's just high maintenance. To keep it looking really good, it needs trimming really frequently, and then when you trim it, it sinks to the bottom of the tank, and then it all gets circulated around the tank and then attaches itself elsewhere. So this is Bucophilandra. We all know why it's called Bucophilandra now, because the flower looks like a you know what. This is actually grows in nature in Borneo, which is actually an area under threat at the moment with palm oil production. So I always recommend when you're buying Bucophilandra, if you buy it from a nursery, you know, from a shop which buys from Tropica or any of the other European nurseries. So yeah, just beware of wild caught Bucophilandra because you're probably supporting the destruction of beautiful rainforests. So I'm just going to pop that one in there. Again, it's an epiphyte, so it likes to be attached to wood or rock. Same principle as the Anubias. Okay, this is Anubias petite, I think. Is it a petite or a small nana? No, it is a petite. So this is like a nana, but a smaller variety. This is one of my favourites. In fact, Tropica are coming out with a brand new Anubias very soon called Anubias Mini Coin, which is my favourite. And the leaves are about the size of my little finger. It's really cute. I'm going to pop that one. There's actually a nice little hole in the dragonstone there. I can pop that into. And then we have some want to grow Bucophilandra. So this has been grown in a laboratory rather than hydroponically, and you can see how tiny it is. But eventually, it's going to go the same size as this one, which has been grown in the regular pot. And this has been grown in the agar jelly rather than the liquid, so it is a little bit more messy to work with. Pop that one in there. And then there's a little hole. Oh, shit, sorry. You're all right. I just like abusing the audience. I'm so sorry.
Interact with the masses.
It's like signing insurance waivers.
Makes the whole thing interactive.
Okay, I think we're nearly there. Sorry to make such a mess. Yeah. Probably saying that that's going to grow up there, but I would have planted something there maybe. This is all going to grow to hide throughout this area. Yeah, I think we're ready for some water. Water, mate, yeah. Using this special device.
Just ask George, if you do get the agar jelly in your aquarium, does it just dissolve eventually?
Yeah, it does. It can be a bit of an algae thing because it's got so much nutrients in, but it's not toxic, so don't worry about it harming anything. Yeah. I've even eaten it before. Didn't do me any harm.
He's tripping over.
So yeah, we fill up slowly. It's important to hopefully stop any clouding of the water. There'll probably be a little bit of clouding, that's okay. We just straighten out this substrate at the front a bit.
See a lot of people when they start, they do like a running water change.
Yes, yeah, that's
Just to get it.
just to get super clean.
Yeah.
The intake, the filter intake. I saw when you were doing it, it looked like it was pretty well at the substrate. Do you need to? Does it need raising up a bit, or is it?
Yeah, I could do a raising up a bit.
Don't give them any
So
more.
alright, that'd be mine.
Yeah,
I can do that.
no problem.
Not my drama.
My thing is, a lot of the stuff I keep is too messy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you got digging fish.
Yeah, kind of. Like, I'm big into the geophaging type things. And,
Oh yeah, I'm gonna put this one in actually.
make a sort of it.
Oops. So this is a good example of how not to prepare a pot.
There you go.
So I was a bit, what's the word, brutal, and tried to pull, and then I pulled all the leaves away. So
It'll regenerate. You're not using that plant.
I am. I'm not going to let it beat me.
Yeah. Top and bottom.
Okay. You can see that. You can see the beautiful root growth there. That's a sign that it's been growing really well. Crips are a huge root feeder. They like to get most of the nutrients through the roots. But what we can do to make planting much more easy, we can just tear them off. And then we can actually do that. This is what we talked about earlier. And then all of the energy is still stored in that rootstock there, and that's going to generate new leaves.
Yeah, purposeful pruning.
That's right. So I'm going to pop that one.
Let's close at that end, right? Let's close at that end, George.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay. What could possibly go wrong?
Don't point it this way, nothing.
Oh,
You ready to go? Yeah?
what's the mains pressure like?
Is it
really high? Because
Yeah.
it is
Turn
high.
right
Is it?
down,
Oh, okay.
yeah. I think we're ready there.
The water inlets are really good because they've got a flat bottom. I just hook it over so you don't really need to do
Yeah,
anything.
that's a good idea. Are we on the way? Right, see you later.
It'll take some filling out.
We've got a peg or a clip or something. Yeah, it's going to take a while.
I'm going to walk all the way around.
Will be ice cubes by the time it's filled.
How close is the tap?
Right here.
Is it? Can you turn it off for a minute?
Yeah.
Completely. Let me know when it's. Oh, I know when it's off.
You said that
More
on
or
camera.
I am normally intelligent. I think it's off now, I'm not sure. Right, you just turn it on super slow. You'll be here a day otherwise. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Sweet. All right. Q&A time. Well, that fills up. Let's have a bit of a tidy up, shall we?
Yeah, there's plenty more plants to sell.
Loads. Yeah. So if you trip to America, are you planning on visiting any shops over there?
No, it's a show called Aquascaping, and I think I'm going to be really busy with that one. Yeah, it's a really cool show. It's a consumer-based show, so I do a lot of trade shows, which is just business to business. But this is hobbyists, and I've got a big following in America actually. So I think quite a lot of people are excited to see my talks and stuff. Yeah, I'm going to do a really good. I'm really excited about the talk I'm doing actually. It's basically a longer version of what you heard today, a lot of the mental health stuff I'm going to talk about. I think that's quite important. I think it's really important for people to know that.
I think people being able to relate is quite a big thing. It's
yeah. I think when you have, for me personally, I see what I do as a privilege. You know, I'm in a privileged position to like do my hobby as a job. So it's important for me to understand that aquascaping is it's more than a job for me. It's like an identity I have with myself. You know, I am an aquascaper.
Yeah.
But it's important also. I kind of always knew that, but I was quite selfish. I think I used to consider myself. I used to market myself as the aquascaper.
Yeah.
Which is quite, you know, self-indulgent. And then I realised I'll never be the aquascape. I'll never be bigger than aquascaping. Aquascaping will always be bigger than me, and I am here to serve aquascaping.
Yeah.
So that's the mindset that I have now. And so trips like America, or meeting people like you guys, is just like it's the ultimate privilege for me because I get to share the joy and hopefully make other people's lives a bit more joyful with aquascaping.
Plus we pay your bills.
Well, you do, but that.
I know.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's a transaction of knowledge and experience. You watch my content. You've given up your time for me today, and you know, Awaze have supported this event. The stores have supported this event. You supported this event by being here. The money will be made, but that's just a positive. It's a positive byproduct of a capitalist society that we live in, where I can execute something that I love doing. You can enjoy it, and people make money, and everyone's happy. And that's a good society that we live in.
Share the love.
Yeah. So it's all good. Any questions?
It's pretty clear.
Yeah.
Pretty clear.
What are your thoughts on lighting and specifically night lights?
Night lights? Yeah, I tend to avoid night lights, like moonlight effect. They tend to be very blue. There's a lot of people think that blue triggers algae particularly, but any light will trigger algae. The trouble is with night lights, it's enough light to increase potential algae, but not enough to promote plant growth.
Right.
So my personal advice is to avoid them, unless you just want them to view when you're with the aquarium as an aesthetic thing. But if, as a rule, having them through the night, regardless, I'll probably avoid that. And it's a waste of energy as well.
What lights do green algae guys out the room? Green aqua use?
Green Aqua use a massive variety of lights. They're very keen on the ADA range, ONF, Chihiros, Twins.
So they choose on?
They're all LEDs. Yeah. The vast majority of lights in the aquarium hobby now are LED because they're more efficient. They're actually more environmentally friendly with the manufacture and the recycling as well as the energy consumption.
I just noticed on their program on YouTube.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, Green Aqua, for those that don't know, probably the best aquascaping store in the world, and they have a dedicated YouTube channel, very educational, very inspirational, really good guys, really funny.
A lot of content, didn't you?
Yeah, they do a YouTube video every week. We had one of their guys over at Tropica last week. He helped us out with a Iwagumi display. But, yeah.
Have you still got him as your wallpaper?
No, I've got my.
You said you were going to change it back to your
No,
wife.
my phone's there. I've got no, I've got a picture of my dog now. Yeah, my wife comes sort of third down the list. Yeah, Tommy, dog, and then Emma. Yeah, he's with dogs now. Actually, we came up yesterday. I told you at the beginning. For those that are here, we drove up yesterday in the storms, and I honestly thought I was driving my wife's car. She's got a Range Rover, and I thought you really battling, like literally battling the wind. And there was two overturned vehicles where I had to double back. And it's like, oh my God, we're gonna die. It's like, yeah, I've been to Afghanistan and that. We can get through this. We're not gonna get blown up at least. She's like, okay. Yeah, and we got home. And the dogs were just asleep the whole time. It was fine. But did anyone know Leek, did they?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite nice.
It's a nice place just outside if you're going off subject, sorry.
That's all right.
If you go to Alton Towers,
Yeah.
and you're saying about landscapes or
Yeah.
lovely valleys, if you go to Alton Towers and then go down into the village,
Yeah.
there's a road called Red Road.
Okay.
And if you go to the end of there, you're actually down in the Chirdic Valley.
Oh, nice.
And it's sort of known as Little Switzerland. Sort of
Oh
thing.
yeah. I love that sort of thing. I love landscapes, seascapes. I think that's why I love aquascaping. Is it just reminds you of being with nature. Yeah.
So adding that water obviously is really cold. Would that shock the plants?
Yeah, it's not ideal.
Happy when you was lying down.
It'll be okay though.
Yeah.
Yeah. They won't be completely happy, but they're not going to die.
What's your theory in like the house plants going into the top and kind of like the peace lilies and all that? Is that ever?
That's a good idea. Yeah, if you like that look, any plant growth is going to contribute to the kind of well-being of the system. Because the plants are taking in nutrients, they're producing oxygen. Plants are nature's best filter. You know, think about what plants do on a global scale for Earth, like rainforests. You know, crops. You know, these are all living things that are designed to take in harm that we produce: CO2, heavy metals. You know, all this waste that humans produce and is produced as part of ecology. Plants are designed to use it as food. It's brilliant. And any more plants you can put in, any closed systems. This is a closed system. You have open systems, which is like the ocean. It's an open system. So rain comes in, evaporates, and it's all open, right, to the world. I mean, this is a closed system. So, you know, you have some evaporation, of course, but everything's enclosed. You have the filtration unit down here, and so all of the biological processes that are going on in this aquarium system are producing waste. So you've got bacteria are producing waste. You've got the plants are producing waste. You've got the fish are producing waste, shrimp, snails. It's a closed system. All this waste is just accumulating the whole time, basically pooing in your own toilet. And then nothing ever is going to get flushed out. So that's why you do the water changes, and ideally have really good plant growth as well, because that just dilutes the waste, basically. So the more plants you have, the less waste you get. So I'm selling plants to you.
Yeah.
If you introduce a friend to aquascaping start, you know, to use something, would you recommend them starting with a slightly larger tank, even let them invest, or
nano?
Or nano?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I go in between like a 2-foot tank, you know, like a 60 centimetre. If you're on a tight budget and you want to get into aquascaping and you're not sure where to start, get a good quality beginners all-in-one starter system. Something like a Wazo Starline 85. I have brilliant success. Is that one there? Is that the 125?
Yeah, that's the 125.
There's one there. There's one there behind Phil.
Skyline 125.
Oh, is it?
That's the Skyline.
Anyway, it's an inexpensive, really good quality system where you can guarantee to have enough technology to grow plants, because I've done it and I've succeeded with it. It's been on TV, it's been on, you know, all over the world. The proof is there that you can succeed with the relatively affordable option. And it's 75 litres as well, so it's a really good size. The smaller you go, the more impact the environmental influence has. So if you have a 10 litre nano aquarium and the room's cold, that water's going to get cold much quicker than a 400 litre aquarium. If you've got a big fish in a small tank and it poos, that poo's going to create a lot more waste than in a big tank. So it's important to have a big enough volume of water to create some environmental stability, and sort of 60 litres or so is a good starting point where you can start to keep, you know, fairly big groups of tiny fish. You know, you create this really naturalistic vibe. You could keep shrimp, you know, snails and shrimp definitely, but in a 75 litre, you've got a lot of options for livestock. You've got a good amount of surface area to plant into. You've got a good lighting solution. You've got 2 LED fluorescents. You've got a built-in filter and heater. So yeah, you've got everything you need to good to go. There's other brands out there, but obviously I'm aligned with the Waze. Is that all right, Stephen? Yeah. Hello, camera. Hello, Waze. Yeah.
Every fancy tank, you know, change side.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a lot of plants down one side, I can't get the side, you know, obviously.
Yeah.
And I've got the, you can see the, you know, it isn't rub, you know, it's not.
Yeah,
fish waste.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you get in there with the?
Just figure it out. You know, got a step ladder, maybe get a siphon hose with a rigid tube on the end.
Right.
You know, so you actually have a longer bit to siphon, and then what you can do is just get anything like your hand or a spade or something, and just wave it around, lift it all up, and then siphon it out. That's what I do. We could probably have a bit more pressure if we want.
Get it filled up. Will you ever retire that thing? No. A wonderful life. Not just for Christmas.
Could possibly go wrong. Let's wrap that one and that one. Like that. Oh.
Looking at the glass, is that just going cold?
Yeah, condensation, that is. What I was going to do then, I was going to take my t-shirt off and wipe that, because I just thought I was at home doing maintenance. That would have been OnlyFins, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So kick off the new feature.
If you want to, we'll throw it away.
Have you checked the connections on the filter?
I haven't.
Not my problem. Did you make sure you
I've got an Oase wrap here, so...
Pre-filter.
You lot the pre-filters.
Yeah. What size external is that there? Then?
That's a 600, I believe. I've got one 600 and three 850s at home. Yeah, I've got two 850s on my 400.
Don't you think we need like a Biomaster 100?
1000.
Yeah, no, 100. I was trying to colour him earlier, like, yeah.
Yeah,
or a 150.
Yeah, the Filto Smarts aren't so nice, are they, to maintain? Is it running? Is it going? I've got the pipes the right way around, have we?
The painting manufacturing.
The valve's closed.
Yeah, it's going slowly. Is that on max? Yeah. It's getting bright now. So I get spurted in the face with it.
The life would be changed if you used the inlet from the Biomaster. It's just so easy, though.
It's not the Red Colander though, is it?
Yeah, I suppose it's, yeah.
It's got a brand to protect.
And t-shirts to sell.
Yeah.
Is there a Red Colander t-shirt?
Yeah, well, I've seen some of the videos, I've not seen it.
I don't wear it often anymore, I've just a bit grown out of it. It's actually designed by So Yuri's and Art Comiso were the founders of Moss Cotton, and there's Art who actually designed it. He's not an aquascaper anymore, unfortunately. Yeah, it's good fun. It's weird when you see people actually wearing it, and you're like, "What are you doing wearing that?" It's funny. It's good. It's great. I love it. I love the support. Can't complain at all. I did a workshop a couple of weeks ago in Premier Aquatics in Runcorn, and it was really good turnout. It was standing only, unfortunately, but there was a good set, I think 60 or 70, and they're all like newcomers, beginners. It was just really great to see people getting into it.
Okay. So you're going to put an inline CO2 on that, did you say? Or in tank?
I would. Do you stock inline CO2?
We'll probably have that later.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No worries.
I'll put an inline seat
Cool. You get your CCAM through ALF? Do they come and see you? They're rats. They're over from America, aren't they?
Not yet. I think we're due on Monday.
Oh, okay. Cool. So George says hello when you see him.
It's the same old
Oh, I think there's a female. I can't remember her name. It's funny because their social media manager was like, "Oh, do you think you're doing some work with us?" I'm like, "Do you realise who I work with?" But yeah, I'm friends with everyone. It's all good. Just want to grow the hobby.
Would you keep the hoses as short as possible, or do you let them be a bit longer so you can get the CO2 dissolving in the tube as well?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, it's just short as possible. It's the minimum difference. You mean actually on the inline diffuser?
No, yeah, from filters to the village.
Oh, I see what you mean. So the actual diffuser.
It's right next
to the end of the lily pipe. Depends what you want to do. If you want the maximum efficiency of plants being able to use the CO2 gas, put it towards the lily pipe.
Yeah.
If you want maximum diffusion in the water so you don't see the bubbles, then towards the filter.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
What is your water change process and what do you use? Just a, oh sorry, you did say earlier a polypropylene.
Yeah, I actually have a long hose, 16mm, 22mm clear hose, flexible hose, siphon straight into the garden.
Yep.
And then during warmer months, straight hose connector to my outdoor tap. And in winter months when it's really cold, I do with the mix tap from my pump it in directly from my kitchen. So there's no buckets involved pretty much.
Yeah.
Apart from my little 8 litre nano. I just so my tropical aqua cube is this big. My water change process, don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone on YouTube. I basically the water change, the 50% water change is let the water evaporate 50%. There's no livestock in it. There's shrimp. So there's just cherry shrimp that are bulletproof, so they don't seem to care. Yeah. Yeah. But if you can, top tip for maintenance, if you could just simplify, make the barrier, just make things as easy as you can. So then you're more likely going to do it. If you overcomplicate stuff, you're not going to do it. And it's really important to these early stages of maintenance. You know, these big water changes at the beginning. It's really important. You know, I made the mistake. I suffered from my own advice. I set up a new scape line 60, which is the smallest version of this. Planted it up, did the daily water changes, and then went to Denver for a week, and then thought, because I've done the daily water changes for a week or so, it's going to be fine, and come back and it was just an algae disaster. There was a few other contributing factors, but the main thing was water changes and not being present there to see what's going on, and not having. I didn't say to my wife, Emma, does the tank look disgusting? She didn't think to say it looked disgusting. I had to ask her. That's funny. So I came back home, you know, all excited about seeing the dogs and how beautiful the aquariums look. And then this is just like algae disaster. And I said to Emma, "Did you notice the algae in the tank?" She said, "Yeah, I noticed it this morning." So it's like, you know, 7 days later. Brilliant.
So with all the open top tanks, have you ever suffered from like humidity in the rooms?
No.
Are they quite open?
No, I haven't. Never suffered. I only have lidded tanks now, apart from the scaper line. But when I did have quite a few, I had an Aquascaping 1200, a couple of others. But my living space is quite open and high, so I don't think it was an issue. Yeah. But that is something bad. If you live in a small space and you've got open top tanks, and especially if you have warmer water in the tank and it's a cold room, you get really quick evaporation and you can get issues that way. Are we on maximum? Yeah. It's like an old man having a wee. I could say that because I am quite old now. So, yeah. Cool.
Yeah. The older unit's probably kicked in over there, which.
No worries. If you don't follow me already on YouTube, then I am available, George Farmer. Subscribe.
Okay.
Right, is this going to work now?
Yeah.
So,
You're going to plug it in, just watch it, there's the little plastic. I will angle it down.
oh yeah, it's going to squirt the audience.
Take it off, please take it off.
So yours, they built it, they're ready to rock straight out of the box. You don't have to fit any media, everything is there, good to go. This is the 87th one that I've set up. I'm joking. 88.
It's got to be close.
Yeah, I don't know, lost count.
So when it comes to the outlet placement, do you think about that from where you add your plants so they're not directly in the front of it?
Yes. Yeah. So I do the scape first, and then I'll position everything after.
Yeah.
To suit the scape. There's a lot of trial and error sometimes.
Yeah.
So you basically want to. The ideal situation in a high-tech, high-energy plant as an aquarium, is that you'll get enough circulation from the filter so that all of the plants will be receiving. All of the plants in the whole aquarium will be receiving some level of circulation. Otherwise, you get dead spots, and dead spots lead to algae because the plants can't generally move very quickly. So you need to get the stuff to them, right? So you need to get the CO2 and the nutrients to the plant. To do that, you need to circulate the water. So that's why I like to use powerful filtration in order to, get that water moved around the aquarium properly. And that's why the Biomasters are really great. There's been a few complaints about the Biomasters. There's some issues with purging. You get some gas bubbles and stuff. There's been some issues with people complain about the pre-filter clogging up too quickly. Now, I actually think that's a really good thing because it means that stuff isn't going into the main body of the filter. So you're actually removing that as part of, and the fact that it's clogging up is a visual warning that you need to clean the pre-filter. So anyone that says it's a bad idea, having that, indication I don't think is the right approach. So I quite like the fact.
Do you think that the size that they say on the box is usually accurate for the size of the tank though?
No. It's very optimistic, I would say. But that's assuming fish-only tanks. It's not talking about aquascaping.
A lot of the flow rates are done with all the media taken out anyway.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So Joe makes something different, but I really like our bigger pond stuff. So that's laid to that a pond with nothing in it, a pond with fish, a pond with lots of fish or koi, and it drops dramatically. That's what I do the fly master. I do the aquarium with 2 goldfish in it.
No one that's
When I put a power head on the other side, I will.
That's the internal one, and the external one.
There's your flagging card, George.
Oh, cheers, mate.
Would you actually seed that now, George?
Say again, mate?
Seed it with bacteria?
Oh, if I had the opportunity to, yeah. Yeah. I normally bring multiple aquariums at home, so I just get a tray of media and swap out a brand new tray with an old tray, and that's it. Simple as that.
How much can you take away from a seeded filtered start with yours?
I don't know. There's no exact science to these things. As long as you're not changing like over half of it, I guess it should be okay. The good thing about planted tank is the plants do most of the biological filtration for you. The filter is more to do with circulation in this type of tank. There's so much plant growth going on in here. Actually, the biological operation of the filter isn't as much as you might think, because the plants are doing so much. The plants use ammonia and nitrite as nitrogen, which, if you didn't know, fish waste leads to ammonia, which then leads to nitrite, that then leads to nitrate. These are all nitrogen compounds. Well, nitrogen is the second most important food for plants after carbon. So the plants use carbon as their number one source of food, because a plant is almost half carbon. And then the second most important is nitrogen. And they get their nitrogen usually from fish waste, fish food, but in a high-tech or high-energy part of the aquarium where the plant growth and the nutrient requirements of those plants exceeds the nutrient output of the fish and the fish food, so you get a nutrient deficiency. That's why you need to add the liquid fertilizers so to keep those plants well fed.
If you were going to personally stock that tank, what would you think would go really well in that? A shoal?
A jungle tank. So it's going to. I actually put 2 or 3, 3 shoals of sort of medium sizes. Maybe a shoal of. I don't know. It's got. I think it's got to be like 2. Because it's quite a chaotic jungle style. I quite like a few different fish species going on. What do you think?
Depends what Phil's got in stock.
That's a good shout. Yeah. I never actually kept diamond tetras. It's gluten-free, sugar-free, lactose-free. Takes.
Taste free.
Tastes like nothing.
There, isn't it?
Yeah,
so water change tomorrow, 50%. Same again following day. Do you want me to send an email with the maintenance schedule? If he's read my book or watched my videos, he knows what to do.
Have you ever had a workshop you've done and someone sent you the picture of a tank 2 weeks later and it's just bombed?
No, they tend to avoid sending me pictures.
No one reported about your tank doesn't look very good.
Emails again.
I've had a couple of awkward things where I've just literally nipped in, I've been in the area, I haven't given them a warning or anything, I've gone in and they're like really embarrassed and like actually cross with me because I've not given them a warning.
You're cross with them.
So obviously when it comes down to trimming,
yeah,
is your kind of philosophy just get in there and cut away?
Yeah, have fun with it. Don't be afraid. With the trimmings, replant them. Have fun with it, propagate them, learn how the plants grow. It's all part of the fun. There's, this hobby is like it's a hobby. It's a hobby. It's an art form as well. It's a science. It's an exercise in design. It's gardening. There's so many things to aquascaping, and it can mean so many things to so many different people. But I think what we can all take away from aquascaping is that it's a source of joy. You know, you get your joy from consuming your aquascape, or creating it, or maintaining it, or sharing it with the world via social media, filming it, trimming the plants, you know, watching it instead of watching telly, educating your children with it. You know, there's so many different joyful elements to aquascaping. It's hard to, you know, it's hard to pin any kind of anything, any one thing down. Yeah, and it's a beautiful way to enjoy the aquarium hobby, I think.
What's your book called, George?
It's called Aquascaping.
Oh, gosh. The thought of that, didn't
Yeah, it's available from all good bookstores. I never thought I'd have to say that in my life, but there we go.
You know the other one you said you're going to work on, the Round the World in 50 Scapes or whatever?
Yeah.
Is that supposed to be a biotope from the kind of biotopes fitted from the different regions?
I don't know yet, it's just a tentative idea. But the idea is to film like 50 groundbreaking, amazing scapes that potentially no one's seen before. Trying to get
no pressure.
Yeah, I think we're good for another centimetre or so. Oh no, you've got these things that stick in the water. That's okay, they're alright. Yeah, go on then, that's enough, I think.
Soon find out if they turn on.
I don't think you need to introduce Algae rakers into your tank.
So we just got a bit of condensation on the front glass there because of the temperature difference. But you can see the water's. Whoa! I'm really surprised I've not killed myself yet today. That was a win for life. Okay, but yeah, jungle style.
Would you ever want
floated then, George? Nothing's floated, no wood floated. It's not a groundbreaking aquascape, but it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be an exercise in, you know, showing you how to use hardscape, how to use plants. We talked a lot about the aquarium plants themselves, how they're beneficial. We talked about how important maintenance is, you know, preventative maintenance, making sure you do those big water changes, keep an eye on all your good stuff. We haven't talked about lighting in detail, and the reason for that is such a complex topic. It's almost impossible to give you the information that you might need in one short sitting. Generally, I run an 8-hour period, so the light's on for 8 hours. In initial startup phase, I might run only 6 hours or even 5 hours. As a general rule of thumb, the more intense your lighting, the less photo period you need. But don't be fooled in thinking that you can grow advanced or demanding plants just by having your lights on for a longer period of time. That won't work. Plants will exhibit a thing called minimum light threshold, where they need a certain amount of light before they can photosynthesize. And that's where the plant group category comes in handy from Tropica, you know, the easy, medium, advanced thing. So for beginners out there, you know, stick to easy if you don't have CO2 or you haven't got strong lighting. And there are, I think there's at least 50, 60 easy species out there. Foreground, midground, background varieties, epiphytes, everything that you can create a beautiful scape with. So don't be put off if you haven't got CO2 or good light. There's probably some plants out there for you, many of which we've used today. Java fern, Anubias nana, all of the crypts, all of the Bucophalandra, the Amazon swords and the Bacopa. All of those classic, easy, aquascaping friendly plants. Is there any other questions?
Fish quantity.
Yeah.
In terms of what is the sort of fish quantity you'd have there, so you don't overstock.
Yeah, that's a good one. I guess the temptation for a lot of folk is to like look at the maximum capacity of that aquarium and stock it to that maximum capacity. Well, actually, I'm a big fan of sometimes less is more with fish. And the fish, when we talked about earlier, I did wax lyrical a little bit about the importance of the welfare of the fish coming first. Let's just ignore that kind of whole thing and talk about aesthetics for a little while. So let's talk about this example here. We have a very high impact, densely planted aquarium. Would it look great with loads of big fish in there? Probably not. They're going to compete with each other. You know, the high impact of the fish is going to compete with the high impact of the aquascape. It's going to look really chaotic, and it's not going to be a relaxing thing to live with. And that's what we want to, ideally, I think that's what most people want to aquascape for, is to have something relaxing to live with. So, you know, I would choose a smaller, you know, a larger shoal of smaller species. And, you know, this is a 250 litre aquarium. You know, I would only put probably 20 or 30 small fish in there. You know, you could probably have 100 and it'd be fine biologically, and the filter and the plant growth would cope with that. But aesthetically, it's just going to look weird having 100 small fish. You know, you wouldn't be able to, it'd just look chaotic mess. It'd look like a Piccadilly Circus. So less is more sometimes. Of course, think about welfare, but also think in terms of aesthetics. Think about fish dimensions. So not just how big the fish gets lengthways, but how tall does it get? You know, does it have a tall aspect ratio? No, like an angelfish. So you wouldn't think about, and how does that complement the aquascape and the aquarium size? So if you had a tall, long, panoramic, shallow aquascape, would it look good with, you know, shallow, long aquascape? Would it look good with tall body fish in? Probably not. They're going to look weird. They're going to look, you know, stunted and compressed, and not going to have a lot of height. But what would look good is a shoal of fast-swimming, you know, streamline, sardine-like fish. You know, they're going to, like danios or resboras or something. So you have a little think about how does a fish suit the aquarium size in terms of the dimensions, length, height, etc. This is a regular kind of size. It's exactly twice as long as it is high. That's right, isn't it? 100 by 50, which is good for aquascaping. But yeah, it's like barbs, I think, like pentazona barbs maybe, because you've got this quite distinct vertical elements going on with the word and the Amazon swords. You know, like a tiger barb or a pentazona barb or a 5-banded barb, you know, these vertical bars, they kind of suit quite well, I think. And it's quite a tall body fish, so it suits the relatively tall aspect ratio of the aquarium. So, you know, I'm thinking maybe 2 or 3 species of barbs might look quite nice, like black ruby barbs mixed with some pentazonas, maybe some green tigers. That might be quite nice. Got a lot of activity, and then all similar shape, so they kind of suit each other. Anyway, yeah, fish choice, always a good talking point. Algae crew, I would stock. You could go for a shoal of Ottocinclus in here. You know, I think Ottocinclus are misrepresented a little bit in the hobby. They're kind of labelled as a nano-friendly algae-eating fish, but actually they, in the wild, they thrive in big shoals. And, you know, like shoals of 10, 20, at least you want to be keeping them in. So not ideal for a nano aquarium, but you could have a nice shoal of 10 or 20 in here. They would look after your kind of background levels of brown algae. The issue with ottos is that they do need continual diet, fresh diet of vegetable matter, and they will starve quite quickly. So the potential issue in a high energy successful planted aquarium is that there actually isn't enough background level of algae for them to thrive. So you may have to supplement with a vegetable kind of based diet. Amano shrimp is always a classic. I'll probably go for sort of 30 or 40 in here. I've got 100 in my, at least 100 in my Oase High line. Unfortunately, they're quite expensive, but they are really good algae eaters. But they so much awesome. Not the best at eating algae, but because they breed so prolifically, they're always constantly grazing biofilm, all the surfaces of the plants and the hardscape. That's usually the prerequisite for algae. So the act of them constantly grazing is a good thing. There's snails that you can get for algae control. My favourite is the horned nearite snail, which is the Clethon corona. It doesn't lay so many of the stubborn eggs that you can get, and they don't breed in fresh water. None of the nearite snails breed in fresh water, but they do lay these stubborn white eggs, which can look quite ugly and hard to remove. Other algae crew you could consider, there's always like the small plecos and things like this, but I tend to avoid these in planted aquariums. They tend to dig around, they tend to create a lot of mess. They are messy fish in general. They'll destroy the wood probably. They actually eat the wood, a lot of them, and actually gnaw the wood away, so you end up with sawdust basically. Yeah, that's it really in terms of algae crew.
Things like things to clean the leaves, like the Siamese algae and the garras and
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean they're the bigger ones and they're very active. Like Siamese algae.
The panda garras, they're quite.
Panda garras, they start off really small and cute, but they can get quite big, and they're not so good at eating algae. Yeah, and they don't look very pretty when they're mature. They're beautiful when they're juvenile. The black and white. Stripy. Panda garras.
Yellowy and yeah.
I might be thinking of something else. Don't worry. I'm probably thinking
Or
something
more
else.
bee gobies because they turn ugly.
Do they?
Yeah, they're cute and then they go viral.
Oh, 1980. Sounds like you've had a traumatic experience.
I know he died well before they reached maturity.
Okay. Yeah, so algae eaters, but it's important to not rely on an algae crew as your sole algae kind of management system. The best algae management system is your maintenance, is your water changes, is your relentless focus on healthy plant growth. That is your best algae control. And then your algae crew are there just to kind of clear things up in the background if it's out of shape. That's how they should be viewed, algae crews. Yeah. I'm really annoyed this keeps steaming up.
We're a little way away from that not happening.
Oh no. Yeah. Never mind. Yeah, he is on here. We're not going till it's cleared.
Yeah,
Let's put kettle back on.
Any other questions, guys?
Are the plants able to cope with a bit of the thermal shock from the cold water?
Yeah, absolutely. Hope so.
Finite to 1 water.
Yeah, George can come back and rescape the tank for us. No, it should be okay. The water isn't that cold, it's probably about 8-9 degrees. Cold enough. So 10 actually. 10.3.
Have you ever entered any of the competitions?
Yeah, I used to enter them quite regularly, but because of my work, I tend to create a lot of aquascapes over a long period of time, and so I have a library of images that I could potentially enter. So I tend to pick my favourite one, what I think is the best. But they're never an aquascape that's been purposefully designed for contests. They've just been an aquascape that I've created for whatever reason, and I've just decided, oh, I think that's okay, I'll enter it. It's a really interesting topic, contests. Hands up who's ever entered an aquascaping contest before? Anyone?
Yeah, the tropical 100k.
Okay. So yeah, when you want to take your hobby to the next level, potentially, there's a big movement, or big kind of community based around contests, and people will create these specifically to compete in these international contests. The biggest one is called the International Aquatic Plant Layout Contest, and that's organised by a company called Aqua Design Amano, ADA, Japanese company, luxury aquarium brand. And the founder, Takashi Amano, is the guy that wrote the book that first inspired me to aquascape.
Decades ago, yeah.
So they organise this contest, and it has, I think it has about 65 countries enter, about 3,000 applicants, and the top prize is 1 million yen, which is about $1,000 US. So it's quite a big deal, and then people take it really, really seriously. And these top aquascapers kind of life's mission almost to win this contest. It's a really, really big deal.
Yeah, they had the guy at Green Aqua, didn't they?
Yeah.
I watched his video last
Yeah.
night.
Yeah, Josh Sim and these really, really skilled and fantastically creative with folk make my aquascapes look, really, really, really terrible. But it is inspirational, and I would recommend, if you want to see what can be achieved in a glass box, then do Google, aquascaping contest or IAPLC in particular, and you'll see some of these outstanding works of art. But they're more like a lot of people will, especially if you're new to aquascaping and you've never been exposed to all of these scapes, if you see one for the first time, in fact, I'll do a thought experiment. Who's never seen a high-end aquascape before? Right, you'll do. I'm going to show you one. Oh no! Someone give me a phone. James, you're my mate. You don't mind me browsing your internet search history, do you?
What do you want YouTube for?
Just Google's fine. I'm going to show this lovely lady a IOPLC entrance and see her reaction. You just sum it up for me and few words. I hope you don't mind me putting you on the spot, do you?
Yes.
You do? I just want you to give me a reaction to this aquascape. Yeah. Because I think it's really important. I see aquascapes every day, thousands of them. So when I see something like this, it's not as impactful. But someone that's never seen one before, it's really, your internet's terrible, James.
Yeah, it's something off. You don't get good internet off
Which
here.
one are
Like,
you
so.
going to get on to work?
Just Google is fine. Just type in IAPLC 2020.
ILPLC.
IAPLC. India Alpha Papa Lima Charlie. There you go. Cheers.
There's the one.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
So it doesn't look, you wouldn't know it was an aquarium until you saw the fish, would you?
That little
Yeah. But can you see how different it is? This is just quite noddy, really. Thank you. So yeah, pretty mind blowing some of the stuff that these people are creating. Whose phone is this? Cheers.
So do you catalogue all your like first scapes and stuff like that to see how bad you were, and then never look back to say actually what was I doing? What
Yeah,
was
no, I get.
Because I've never seen you post any content of any of your first tanks.
I know. I do, if you follow me on Instagram, I do
Oh,
quite a bit of old stuff on there, like Throwback Thursdays and stuff.
All right.
But yeah, I do look back and think, yeah, I was really terrible, and that's okay.
Yeah,
we all start
you've
somewhere.
grown.
Yeah. If you started off brilliant, then you're not going to learn much.
No.
And the joy is actually, it's a good point. Another thing I've realised lately is finding the joy in the process and not the outcome.
Yeah.
So you can focus so much about like, you know, when I was growing YouTube, I was like, yeah, when I hit 100,000 subscribers, I've made it, it's going to be brilliant. And you hit it, and you're like, you're almost depressed because you're like, oh, I've hit it now, you know. So actually, it's learning to, find the joy in the simple things that contribute to the process, and it's knowing that it never ends. That's the beauty. You're never going to get the perfect aquascape, and that's brilliant. That scares some people that have this kind of fixed mindset or scarcity mindset where they think I have to achieve this in order to be happy. Actually, it's knowing that you can never really achieve that perfect thing is actually the thing that motivates you. It motivates me anyway.
I really like that small crystal one you've got.
Yeah.
It's the nature of a growing thing as well, isn't it? Because it may look absolutely perfect one week, but the next week, half it's overgrown.
Yeah.
So you actually bring it back down.
Yeah. Exactly. It's all,
It's chopping and changing. Let's say it may not be so good at the start, but it's going to grow in. It's like the whole carpet thing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a really good way to understand delayed gratification, because you can have your end. You know, you might have an end vision and goal. You might have an aquascape that you want to copy, or you've seen something in a book, or you've seen a landscape for real in real life that you want to copy. So you have this end vision in mind, and then it's up to you. Then it's your control, your choices that determine whether you can execute on that end vision, and you'll make mistakes and failures along the way. But when you actually, if you ever get to achieve that end vision, that's great. But actually finding the joy in trying to create it, that's where the real magic happens, I think. But contests, interesting one.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you do a scape off with Jerry?
Yeah.
You did. I saw that. So I actually kind of I found out about you through watching him.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, kind of like seeing that kind of scape off and everything.
Yeah, he came over to the UK. I hosted him at my place.
Yeah. So I did see that.
Yeah, he's good. He's good fun. But he inspired me to take YouTube more seriously. So got a lot to credit.
He's got a big platform to reach more people.
Yeah.
He's got that going pretty well sussed, isn't he?
Yeah, he's doing right.
What country do you think has the biggest buy-in to aquascaping then?
Oh, probably the Far East. Yeah, just their whole kind of culture and their philosophy around nature and being connected with nature is so different to ours. We really are, we're almost conditioned as in the Western culture to not really, just to see nature as a commodity to exploit for our own greed, basically. But as the Far East, there's elements of that, but they're generally more connected and they respect nature.
Is it quite?
You know, they go whale hunting and stuff. They're a bit mixed up.
Yeah.
But generally, you know what I mean. Yeah.
And how big's it getting in America? Because I see lots of
Growing.
people posting there.
It's growing, yeah. It's growing really well. America's like, the interest, the demand is almost exceeding the supply for aquascaping. So because of the geographic nature of the USA so spread out, it's actually really hard to find an aquascaping kind of hub. So in the UK, you've got like the East Anglia, east of England, you've got Aquarium Gardens, I live there, you've got Riverwood, and you've got this kind of collection of, you know, friendly aquascapers. Whereas, and so that can kind of, you can grow the hobby that way, but the USA is very, yeah, diverse, split up, whatever you want to call it. So the interesting thing about the USA is that there's a lot more physical groups, you know, like clubs.
Yeah.
And they do plant swaps and hardscape swap and demos because of this split, and the retail sector is pretty underrepresented in terms of aquascaping. So you do get a lot more hobbyists doing trading rather than through retail. Hopefully that's going to change. But it's such a challenge because America's so big. Europe we're spoiled because we've got such a high concentration of rich countries. You know, before Brexit, you know, the logistical chains were very good. And so the hobby has, you know, grown relatively quickly and easily in Europe compared to America.
Do you have any preference on colour spectrum of lights for grow plants?
Yeah, I tend to go what suits the scape actually, or what light I have to choose from. I like, if I'm doing more minimalist, sort of high-end design scape, I'll go for a cooler spectrum just to kind of make everything pop a bit more clean. If I'm doing a more lush kind of jungle style, then I'll go for a more warmer spectrum. That's it really.
You wouldn't say it affects the growth?
It's really interesting. I think it does. We know that it does affect growth in land plants. You know, cannabis, for instance. When you grow cannabis, you have different spectrums to induce the flowering and the, you know, in all different kind of growth stages. And I assume it's the same with aquarium plants. Now, the thing with aquarium plants, a lot of them are actually kind of almost aquatic weeds, so they're very adaptable to a wide range of spectrums. Whereas if you had a more complex, like higher plant, then I think that would be a lot more susceptible to spectral changes.
The reason I ask is I've got one of these aquascape lights.
Yeah.
It's got an app and you can ramp up and down the RGB.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
So I've dialed the green down a little bit because I understand that's what the plants don't use and that's why they're green.
That they reflect the green back, but they do still use a little bit of green, but not much. To be honest with you, with most aquarium plants, if you've got enough light in terms of quantity, and you're using CO2 injection, and you're using good fertilizers, soil, you've got good plants to start with, it doesn't really matter. Just keep it consistent and just choose the spectrum that suits your taste because you're the one that's living with it. The plants actually aren't that fussy. Plants in nature, when you think about where they grow in nature, they're very, very adaptable. They have to be. They're really far down normally in in forest canopies. They're being blocked by a lot of light often, but also in some areas they're in open lakes where they're getting pure, you know, direct sunlight. So they have to be able to adapt. So with that in mind, they are adaptable, generally speaking. Still not clear enough, is it?
The thing we can do is make this room very cold.
Yeah, it's open that door, yeah. I've not actually had a look around the shop yet. Is it a good shop? Is it good? Yeah. I think I saw it on Instagram. Is that here?
Yeah. Next to
Is it his son? Any other questions, guys? I'm going to have a little wander around in a bit. And we're welcome to selfies and all good stuff. I love a selfie. Yeah. If you're on Instagram, tag me in.
Yeah, I'll go selfie.
Share that. In fact, you're a good photographer. You can take photos of people's phones. You can do. I'm going to say cheerio to my YouTube following if there's anyone still watching. Thank you for watching. Cheerio. Oh, welcome. My pleasure. Thanks for coming.